All right, here we are. Welcome to Mindset Savage, episode number 3. I have Serenity Kelly with me, and I've got a couple of plans on a few things we're going to talk about, but other than that, we're just going to kind of go as normal and just kind of see where the conversation goes. Don't really do a whole lot of planning or prep. I just try to keep it as authentic as possible so that you know what you're hearing is the truth. And this is your first podcast,
It
correct?
is.
Well,
Very first one.
welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Tell the people a little bit about yourself, please.
My name's Serenity Kelly. I'm born and raised here in Sevier County, and wife and mom. Two biggest things to know about me. Been married 21 years. I've got 2 children, one 20-year-old that's a senior in college. I've got one very soon to be 17-year-old, junior in high school. And so they pretty much define my life. I've worked in the tourism industry for the better part of my life since I was 13 years old. And so it gives me the opportunity to really be aware of what all's going on around our nation. I get to talk to people from all over the country day in, day out. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. And how long have you said since you were 13?
I was 13, family business.
Place?
So yes.
Gotcha.
So yes.
Yeah, I don't talk a whole lot about location stuff. Sometimes people can maybe figure it out, but I don't know how much information, personal stuff.
Sure.
I want the internet people to know.
Understand that. Sorry.
Especially with not knowing what direction that this is going to go.
Right.
So not a whole lot of super like here and there, which is probably best for
everybody.
Everybody else is involved as well too.
Yes.
What would you say really moved? I guess I started seeing a lot of your passion for what was going on in the world today through the SCAMdemic stuff.
Right.
Have you always kind of been that involved and that passionate about it, or did that kind of wake you up?
Not
to
necessarily. I got busy raising 2 young children, and so it was just basically survival mode there for a long time, getting kids back and forth to sports and school, and just kind of trusting that things were being handled by the right people and that we were going to be taken care of as Americans, and that we could just kind of trust what we were seeing on the morning news, nightly news, and didn't really pay a whole lot of attention. Always voted. I think that's very, very important to always vote. I have family that fought for a right to vote, and so local elections, federal, any election, I think it's important to show up and cast that vote.
Whether it's counted correctly or not.
Correct, that too. But I wasn't real excited about a candidate until Donald Trump came along, simply because he wasn't a politician. And that was something new. I hadn't seen that in my lifetime. And was very excited to see, and I felt like he did do a lot of positive things for the country. And it did wake you up. He did expose a lot of things while he was in office. And then when
he kind of ran on that drain the swamp slogan, did you already know that the swamp was kind of bad, or it was just kind of out of sight, out of mind?
Yeah, I knew, but I always felt like, what can I do? I mean, I'm going to go vote, but it's just same old, same old.
Well, it's and people should know we are taught and raised to trust and believe.
Right.
So it's
that
not like somebody
is
crazy, for trusting and believing them up until we had, vivid reason not to.
Right.
So you kind of on autopilot in regards to them.
And unless it personally is affecting you, I don't think you realize, too much if it's not really personally touched you, something going on.
So during that time, kind of what, I guess.
So I got real excited about that election. And that was probably the first I was super excited about. And
what got you excited about it?
Just number one, that he wasn't a politician. And he came out on a different platform. And really, he had no reason to run.
So you didn't necessarily dislike it. You were just kind of interested in what was new.
Right. I started paying attention
the idea
more.
To something being different.
Right. And I felt like, wow, this may be what we really need, a businessman versus a career politician. Yeah. Which I personally don't think we should have career politicians. I think term limits for every office. But I was very excited. I was a fan of his show, The Apprentice. And I saw how he ran his businesses, and I was excited to see him, to get in office and do some of the things he did in the boardroom, basically. So that, to me, was very exciting. And I watched all the debates, got very, in that that did interest me. I started doing more research into a lot of the debate topics. But when the SCAMdemic came around, actually the week that it started, I was actually in the hospital myself right before the regulations kicked in. I'd had an emergency surgery. And while I was in there, it had just started being reported on that we might go into some type of lockdown nationwide, maybe even worldwide.
Into March, roughly.
Right, about that time frame. And so it was, as soon as I basically left the hospital, they started implementing the lockdowns, and we're going to go into this lockdown mode. It'll be a 2-week thing. We'll see what happens. And initially, just because of what we knew at that point, what I felt like I knew about the government, I was questioning, is it even a real virus?
Right. So immediately you kind of had that feeling.
Questioned, yes. And didn't really believe maybe it was even a real virus. But then, people did start getting sick. Right. And in fact, I've had it twice myself, and it's a very unique virus, to say the least. And it's
I've never had it, so I don't know.
Right.
But it's crazy to me how it affects people differently.
And I will say I've had the flu, I've had strep throat, I've had different things, but this was something completely different. It affects you completely differently. I experienced some of the and coworkers have it. We all experience different symptoms. Right. It was definitely something more that was like an engineered something to do damage to your body. Right. And as far as the things that they did, as far as the mask and things like that, we immediately were like, that's not right. We have family in the medical field, and we knew enough to know when you're a healthy person, you don't put a mask on. And
especially about something you have no idea what it is.
Right. And you definitely, and there were so many double standards coming out, like you could put a mask on to walk to a table in a restaurant, and then you pulled your mask. I mean, it was, so definitely just a lot of questions initially. And I also was very fortunate because, as we both know, they were trying to shut down the spread of information. And so anything that was posted that they didn't like, you got flagged on social media. They were the media was running the articles and the stories they wanted you to hear about it. Right. But like I said, in my position where I work in tourism, I was talking to people from all over the country. And there was people having to call and cancel their reservations because of their particular state's restrictions. Our business, we kept it open. Yeah. But fortunately, that was one thing I was able to learn about what was going on in their states, how they were inflating numbers. I mean, even talked to some people that worked at the health department in other states, and it was, definitely.
Had you always trusted media pretty much up until this point as well?
And unfortunately, I did trust, I would watch the nightly news. I would listen to the Today Show while I got ready. And I just trusted that there was some type of professional code that they reported truth. Yeah. And
one would think.
And
morals.
Yeah. I did. And unfortunately, it was very disheartening to find out they didn't. And they spin things, and they definitely limit conservative voices. They limit information they do not want you to know about. When the vaccines started becoming a thing, that was also something that was very interesting working where I work. We were getting calls initially, I think if you remember, it started places where companies were offering incentives if you would get the vaccine.
Yeah, I think Krispy Kreme gave you donuts.
Yeah, you got donuts. You got, some companies were offering bonuses on your paychecks. And some of the people that were calling to cancel were people that were some of the first ones to get the vaccine. Really? And one guy called us from the hospital and said his company had offered a $100 bonus on their check if they got the shot. And he wasn't calling us to say he'd had an adverse reaction. He was going to have to change his dates, and he said it was the worst $100 he ever made. Spent a week in the hospital. So that made us really start questioning the safety of the vaccines.
Regardless of where you work or anything, but did your place of employment, did they kind of align with where you are on all this?
Oh, they aligned. Yes, I'm sorry, but they absolutely.
They didn't go above and beyond on the crazy plastic here, but you could breathe here and under here and over here and all that stuff.
They didn't. We didn't do masks. They didn't post the signage that the city wanted posted.
Nice.
Because we knew it. Now, obviously, we have our own cleaning standards, and before that, I mean, when you're in lodging, you deal with wanting to clean for all kinds of different things.
Should do it correctly.
Way before COVID, came around. So we already had cleaning things in place to keep our cleaners safe, to keep our guests safe. But
it stayed pretty much business as usual.
oh yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
we stayed. It was honestly, it was one of the busiest. We had people that would sneak out of states to come here because they were on technically lockdown, but they found out, we're open for business.
It's wild that people
Right.
allow a government to control them like that.
Absolutely.
So easily.
Absolutely.
Just
yeah.
with no information,
Right. They
nothing
just
making sense.
want to
just blindly.
comply and get along. And, the way we felt about it, we have 2 kids, and we knew the importance of them. They both wanted to be in school, and we knew that it was harmful what they were doing, shutting our schools down and doing that
When
to our
kids were
children.
the least affected.
Right, right. And we felt like, we need to speak up. We need to do something about this.
Have you always been someone that kind of got passionate about things that you're interested in, or was this kind of like a more important because of how important it was?
I think for this, to me, it came down to, I felt like my kids are getting older, and we've done everything we possibly could to raise good kids, to raise kids that are going to be good contributing adults to our world. And my concern was, here I've raised these amazing kids, and I'm sending them out into a world that's just not good enough for them. Right. And at this point, what I can do as their parent, because they're to the point where I've got to let them go out. I've got to let them be adults. But I need to make sure the world's a better place for them. And so for me, this is my way of trying to, and it sounds weird maybe, to make the world a little bit better for my kids as adults.
And our generation, we're at the point where it's time for the leaders to kind of step up and take a stand for some things.
Absolutely. And, my thing is, we're Christians, and we have something called discernment. And I think a lot of times, that feeling of something that's just don't feel right, a lot of times you need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, trust your gut for sure.
Right. And God gives us that, and it's a God-given gift.
Right.
And we knew.
When you're totally in line and in tune with it,
right.
It will think for you.
Right. Right. And so I think, right now more than ever, it's praying for wisdom, praying for that discernment, because you're being bombarded with lies from every direction. Yep. But like I said, fortunately for me, I was in a position where I got to speak to people from all over the country. That was honestly just confirmation for the feeling that I had that this isn't right.
Things weren't lining up.
Things weren't lining up.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
And so.
Did you all get any pushback in regards to not being overly cautious
we did.
with things?
Yes, we had some bad, social media reviews.
Yeah.
We had people tell us that we were going to get people killed for not,
you're going to kill everybody's Nana and all that.
Right. And why aren't we supposed to be Christians? Do we not care about people? It was definitely.
It's weird how the fear tactic really worked so easily as well. I mean, without any evidence or anything, people immediately just thought that the wind was going to blow their direction, they were going to get something and die.
Yes, and I think people lived in fear. I think they lashed out in fear, and I think they passed that fear on to their children. Right. And we're seeing evidence of that now with their
emotionally weak society.
Yes, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
But it's wild that they would just threaten other people and, say that they're Christians of faith themselves and just allow that fear to take, over their faith.
And as Christians, we're supposed to live by faith.
And then to judge others or tell them, bad things or wish ill will against them.
Oh, absolutely.
I never in my life would have thought I would have seen a society divide so quickly over something that
it was amazing.
Didn't really happen.
Yeah, it honestly is just mind-blowing. I
understand they were stacking body bags and digging
what they were showing you. I get it.
I get that.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge risk taker. I don't go skydiving. I'm not crazy. I get it. Like, I'm not taking huge chances with my life and my kids' lives and personal safety.
But you would understand that you may not, but other people that do might have a little bit more knowledge in that area.
Right.
And it's like these people just forgot that somebody else might have a little bit more information than they do and be open to it.
Right. Yeah.
everybody's thought process just ended, and that fear took over. And
took over common sense. It
crazy.
Took over their God-given discernment. It took over everything.
And their ability to function.
Right. And
for
really,
the most part.
it made me sad for a lot of people. Some of the people that were the nastiest, you know, I prayed for them because I felt like a lot of the things they were saying was just strictly out of fear.
Yeah.
And really, that's a sad way.
Emotional mess.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it showed a lot,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
And that's kind of where I was in trying to be vocal on it. You know, I knew what was happening. I could just see it.
Right.
I have, you know, through the experiences that I have in life, have kind of trained me and prepared me to be able to look at things and see them in certain lights. And
but you know,
I was trying to warn people and tell them.
Yes.
And they would just get so mad at me.
Right. They were so triggered.
Yeah. And I mean, the
Emotionally
messages
triggered.
that I was getting about people hoping I died.
Yes. Got those same messages.
All kinds of things. And at the time, you know, I reacted a little bit.
I mean, it's personal. When someone tells you they hope you die. Yeah.
Differently. But I mean, even though I knew what was going on, it was still affecting everybody's life in a different way. And
I guess the question is
hard.
why were so many so easily manipulated? But then, like you said, it was like my husband and I were having this conversation. It was like we just knew, and I don't know how to explain it. We're not necessarily more intelligent than anybody else. We don't have genius level IQs or anything like that. It's just we just knew. It was like we just
straight
knew.
Common sense, being able to think logically.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
You know, I mean, aside from, you know, faith and trust and I think a lot of confidence.
Right.
You know, so when you're confident, you're not so fearful.
Right.
Regardless of if you know anything about information or not, when you're confident, you have the ability to know.
Yes.
I don't necessarily know about this, but I can understand this person may or may not, and I can still make my own judgments.
Right. And I guess for us, you know, they tried the incentive route. There was nothing, I mean, I didn't care if it was $1 million. We weren't going to chance it. But then it went to the threatening route. And for us, you know, we didn't have to go to concerts. We didn't have to go on a cruise. We didn't, you know, and I know people that went and got them for just strictly that purpose.
Just the leisure.
Just to, you know, and I mean, I'm not willing to risk my life for that or my children's lives. And so, you know, once it went into that of the threatening mode, at that point, it was like, okay, wait, you know, really, how are people not paying attention to this? When have we ever been threatened like this over a vaccine?
It's craziness.
Yeah.
On top of the other little things that were thrown in, the George Floyd stuff, the riots, and all the other nonsense. It's just
meant to divide. I mean, divide the people, make it a constant,
a lot of culture has a lot to do with it. I think since Obama's presidency, really things started going downhill when we accepted things that we shouldn't have accepted and tolerated things that shouldn't have been tolerated. And I think then people thought it would kind of fizzle out maybe, or if we didn't pay any attention to it, it may not do what it would, but it really just gave it the shadows to grow in. And I mean, it's wild that the whole, you know, 16 pregnant generation, where then those young kids had the kids, and then the grandparents raised them, and then participation trophies and all that. Well, what, 20 years later?
Here we are.
Here we are.
Gentle parenting.
And
how's that working for you?
If we don't do anything now, what's the next going to look like?
Next 10 years.
It's going to be worse because everything is evolving so much quicker. And I just don't understand how people don't see it, or at least don't understand that they don't see it. You know, at least be open to something. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is provide people with some different conversations, show people, you know, truth and authenticity and different viewpoints, and maybe be inspiring to people to learn how to communicate again.
And you're not going to get it from Google or from, I mean, they're censoring you. And like I said,
horribly,
our information came from having conversations, which I think they're counting on people not doing. But having, you know.
The internet it's done a little bit of good in the ability to spread information quickly, but I feel it's done more bad.
Unfortunately, I mean, I don't know about you, but my account was shut down multiple times.
I've been
for violating community standards,
kinds of
spreading misinformation, anything I posted that went against the narrative.
I had to stop just because I lost access to my business pages when my profile got banned. And at that point, I was like, I can't be doing this. You know, I've got to figure out a different way. But it was extremely strange how
Yeah.
all that was manipulated.
Absolutely.
I mean, just social media in itself, you know, all of a sudden you've got people that have never conversated with people probably outside of their community.
Right.
Conversating with people all over the world without understanding that they might not think the same way that you think, speak the same way. You know, they give different meaning to different words. Context can be completely different.
Right.
You know, just thoughts and behaviors. And it's a cesspool of wild conversation that's willy-nilly happening.
Right.
And I saw it through that more than anything, of just so many people with that emotional fear talking. And, you know, immediately, if you didn't agree with them, wrong, bad, this, other, like, no one was open to the thought that somebody might have a different experience in life, or have, you know, more education, or, you know, all this, you know, like people are saying, where did you get your degrees from this?
Well,
you
Google
don't necessarily have to have a
right?
degree to be able to research things.
Right. Common sense.
You know,
Right.
I've created multiple businesses and didn't need a single degree to do any of it with.
Right.
But it's like people lost that mental capacity to understand
Right.
that there's people like that they're communicating with.
Right.
Not everybody that they're typing to feels just like they do in those situations, or thinks, or is in the same world and environment.
But it's interesting, the same words were used by a lot of these people.
I know, it's wild.
It's, you know, and that's how it makes me think, you know, they've been manipulated. They have been indoctrinated to tell you, because it's the same few insults that they run with, that they're triggered by. When you present a fact, they're emotionally triggered.
And then it makes you wonder how soon in the beginning the bots were, too. Because I know that, like, when the fact checkers and stuff came out, a lot of that was just bots and algorithms and things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Picking up keywords.
But have you ever watched the documentary The Social Dilemma?
Yes.
On Netflix?
Yes.
I watched that
Yes.
during that time period, and that was really eye-opening.
Right.
And from there, I really started kind of dissecting how it worked and the time periods that we've gone through it and whatnot.
Yes.
And it's wild how it's been manipulated to do the things that it does. I understand.
I mean, it's kind of incredible in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
but
it really
impressive.
is. Yeah,
but
and it makes you wonder how
scary.
long that information and that technology has been around.
Right. Right.
You know, because I've really started questioning a lot.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But it's like, okay, how much of that was bots? You know, aside from the censorship and things like that. You know, and it's absolutely crazy to me that our entire world, you know, focus on our country the most, but the entire world was affected by this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Yes. And how people allowed their governments, the other countries, to tell them, you know, you were to not leave. And, you know, people were getting fined. People were getting put in prison. I mean, it was, a lot of countries had it worse than we did.
Yeah, for sure.
But some certain states had it worse than we did, depending on their state government and what, you know, laws were in place, or mandates, I guess, not even laws were in place. But I think, people didn't know the difference between a mandate and a law.
No,
and
they really didn't.
I mean,
and it gave a lot of people a weird chance to have some power that they really didn't need to have or know how to control.
Right.
Like the people that I saw in some stores screaming at people and things, and I'm like, this is not how we function in society.
No.
We don't treat others like this.
No.
You know, but I'm the bad guy because I'm not complying with everything. You have to come, you know, most people didn't yell and scream at me, but it's because of how I approached every situation. You know, it wasn't that everybody went out and didn't wear a mask because they were assholes, and if somebody said something to them, they were screaming at them. It's not what the internet was making it out to be. And if most people would have gotten out and about, they would have seen that life on the internet and the reality, two complete different things.
And, you know, how different it might have been if people had just said, nope, not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah.
I mean, how different things might have been. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's still time for that.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much is left.
I mean, I hope this was a lesson for a lot of people. I hope now that more information has come out and people are starting to see some of this stuff, some of these
people are just, their egos are too big, they can't admit it.
True.
Like, they know they're smart people, even though, like, we understand that everyone's been manipulated. We were at one point manipulated too. It is okay.
Right.
But it's not okay to know that and then stay there.
And still do nothing about it.
It is time for us to take action. But so many people I don't know if maybe it's what they said out of fear in the beginning, and they, can't go back on that, or if there's ego and pride won't allow them to admit that they've been manipulated and wrong. I don't know.
Or I think sometimes people feel helpless. I don't think they know where to look for information, or...
Right, but they're still not looking, though.
No, they're not looking. No. And maybe they're
that's where they're lacking the
maybe
ability
they're just
to
hoping
self-aware.
These people that are in charge will take care of us.
Yeah, that's not the way
it's going to take care of your children, going to take care of, and you don't need to worry about it.
Right.
And
there is a lot of people that believe in that.
Right. Yeah. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get busy and just trust that, people are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there's still people that think it's patriotic to pay taxes. It's crazy.
Right. Yep.
So during that process, were you still involved in, as concerned with the politics, or were you more focused on the SCAMdemic side of it, or did that really begin to mesh them?
It meshed together. I felt like, we had a president that went on national television and threatened us on a number of occasions.
Right.
Those of us that, we were threatened that it was going to be a winter of death, that, we were to not be gathering large groups, and different things that were said. And to me, I just, in my lifetime, I never thought I would see that happen. I don't care which side of the fence you're on.
Especially when we're supposed to be a free country.
Right. And people just, saying, okay, whatever you say. And so to me, it was concerning. Like I said, people didn't know the difference between a mandate and a law.
Right.
They didn't understand that as a business, they didn't have to necessarily shut down. And I do feel like, one thing that should have been questioned, for example, salons and spas, I feel like they were targeted.
Right.
Churches were targeted.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to Walmart, but you're not allowed to go to church.
Well, I do have a small problem with that. I don't know why a single church allowed itself to shut down.
In some states, they were being fined.
I would have taken fines.
And some pastors did. And kudos,
for sure.
Mad props to those that did.
That is the only places that needed to be open.
Mad respect. But I do get it. I think some churches, unfortunately, they've still not reopened. I mean, they've not. They basically closed down. People quit coming. And
that's probably for the best then.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad. It's sad that people didn't have enough sense to say, I can go to Walmart, but not to church.
Right.
And what's going on here?
Right. Well, I mean, nothing is ever going to come between myself and my faith and how I do or do not worship. I'm not a huge churchgoer myself, but I advocate for others that do. It's fine with this.
You can worship anywhere.
But the ability to everyone should have, especially during those crucial times.
Yes.
That is where community needed to gather, and to even if it was legit, we should have been there, helping those in need. If people needed supplies or food or whatever, people that were healthy could have been doing so if it was serious enough, But regardless, the fact that so many people just kind of put their faith in it to the side and said, we're going to believe.
Right.
To me, it's believing the devil, because it was 100% an evil tactic on us.
And now looking at it, we know that there was an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole thing even I think came about.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how people don't realize that. I don't get that myself. But I think, for me, it was about, what can I do? What can I do? I'm one person. I'm not a famous person. I'm not anything big. Like I said, I work in the tourism industry. I'm what can I do?
Right.
And for me, when they did start making it a requirement, companies started implementing and trying to dictate and tell people, you're going to lose your jobs if you don't do this. How can I help those people?
Right.
And so for me, I looked into it, and religious exemption seemed to be the way to go. And so I started calling around local pastors. I had friends that were calling their pastors, trying to find a pastor willing to sign a religious exemption letter that would...
This is for the
vaccine, when they started dictating that, and companies were mandating it in workplaces. And I knew people that they couldn't afford to lose their jobs. They couldn't afford to lose their insurance. And so I wanted to give them an option. I felt like you have the right to decide if this vaccine is for you.
It's our body, our choice.
Right. And so, fortunately, after about 20-something pastors saying no. One was willing to say yes. You know, I'm willing to sign this exemption letter and take a stand on this with you.
Right.
And
what research did you have to do to figure out
so
that was
a
viable way to get it?
Most states have it, and I don't know if parents even realize it because schools don't really tell you this, but you don't have to vaccinate your kids. Most states have it where you can request a vaccination exemption form. And for example, the state of Tennessee, we have it where you can do it based on personal. You don't even have to say what your reasons are. And or religion, and just get that form every year. It doesn't limit you as far as what your kids, it's never limited what your kids can be in or not be in. Kids are not segregated based on if this one's vaccinated, can't sit next to this kid. But most states have it in place where you can do that. You can get the vaccination exemption form.
So that was able to work in employment
Right. So I felt like if it could work there, then employers were to honor it. But now, as the way it was being pushed, the first couple times or first couple ones that tried it, corporations were denying it, which, I mean, that could be, to me, a big civil lawsuit. But, you know, at that point, I don't know if the employer cared or didn't care because,
defend them in it anyways.
I mean, our own government was threatening if we didn't do this, or else, you know, we had, you know, you weren't going to be able to travel, you weren't going to be able to go to certain venues, you weren't going to be able to do certain things.
That was pretty interesting.
Right. And so, but once a company said yes, it was like a domino effect. Other companies started saying yes. And
now, did you see a response on social media in other areas trying to do the same as well to kind of help navigate through that?
I was pretty vocal about it, and I was offering, you know, to look, if you need this letter, message me, I'll get you a letter. And I did. I had people reaching out from all over the country. And once a corporation accepted it, like, for example, one corporation had over 20,000 employees, and they had about half of those that didn't want to take it. And so once they approved the letter for an employee, they shared it with other employees. And it became, you know, and so I'm not going to name the corporations here, but multiple corporations, you know,
did the right thing
and upheld and honored those. And there was people that...
Which in a lot of, you know, their defense, they didn't necessarily agree with it either.
Right.
Their hands were tied because of funding purposes and, you know, the governmental services and stuff.
Just going with the flow, going with what the culture's telling you. And
I don't agree that they did go along with it, but, you know, it's not...
I understand. I do understand.
It was from the top all the way down.
All the way
Everybody
down.
was affected.
Right. Absolutely.
So were you as vocal on social media about situations in life, things such as this, on social media prior to this, or during this did you really start getting more vocal?
I think when I started getting vocal politically online was actually when Donald Trump was running for president the first time. I think that's when I actually started posting political articles, sharing, you know, when he would have a debate, sharing some of those articles, things like that. I know, you know, I did get some kickback then, I think, you know, but it wasn't until probably when this SCAMdemic came along that I probably, over half the people I was friends with on social media, you know, and that's fine.
Got replaced with new friends.
Yeah, got replaced with new friends.
Did you get gain a big following through it all?
I did. I probably gained as many as I lost. It seemed like, you know, I lose some, but then gain some. And fortunately, you know, there was people paying attention. And, you know, one thing a lot of times that piqued people's interest were when someone would write a nasty response to just a basic factual something I posted. And that would pique that person's interest. And fortunately, you know, seeing how people reacted, you know, and to me, good, that's a win. That's one more person that's paying attention. And when you see someone being that defensive to something that's not an attack on them personally, you have to start to wonder what's going on here. Why?
What underlying issues.
Where's this? Where's this coming from? So, but
it's we're not for everybody.
No,
and that's okay.
No.
Everybody thinks that everybody has to like them and agree with them, and, you know, vice versa. And that's not the way that the Lord made us or the way that a society functions. We don't learn or grow or progress if everybody's thinking and doing the same things. We have to have the ability to free think and try things and have diversity. Diversity is a good thing, but not when it's politicized and, you know, pushed with agendas and things. And I'm trying to figure out a way to, you know, get people to, get back on board with that, and I'm hoping that this does it.
Right.
If not, I don't know where our society is going to be
Right.
in the next few years if we make it even through this
Scary
election.
thought. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So with those exemptions, then, did you kind of just get, like, did it just need that one pastor's signature and then you could PDF it?
Yes. So
Anywhere?
once I got, PDF it anywhere. And at that point, people could watch their church online. So, but it was basically, it was using scripture to say, this is why, I'm not comfortable with injecting something experimental into my body.
Yeah.
And whether you agree or not, we're supposed to have freedom of religion. We're supposed to have the freedom to make these decisions for ourselves and be respected for it, whether you agree or disagree.
Right.
And so, but up until this point, I think this was one of the, first times that, like I said, that it's ever been, it was incentivized.
Yeah.
And then it was.
Had an agenda with it, for sure.
Absolutely. And then you were threatened if you didn't do it. And, they were trying to shut down the flow of information. If somebody posted.
They weren't trying. They definitely did.
Right. Absolutely. If they had an adverse reaction and somebody tried to post about it, it was removed from social media.
So was the first one that it was one and done, or did you have to try it a few different times?
So it was a few different times.
Like
the first company rejected it. Kind of shocking. The person did lose their job.
Oh, wow.
And then from there,
you just have to tweak what it said and the
no,
verbiage
I
on
kept
it?
the letter the same.
Oh, really?
It was just finding, the companies that would agree to it. I
So
did
it's just
have
like a kickstart, and then from there it kind of got a little bit easier.
Right. I had an attorney review it to see, and he loved the letter.
Right.
He was working out of another state. I believe it was New York, where this particular attorney was from, and he was using it to try to help some of our National Guard nationwide that was trying to keep their position and keep it without having to get it.
Yeah.
One of the things
Did it work for that?
It eventually, yes. It basically went into a review process, I think, for a lot of people, and finally came back that they didn't have to get it. They kept it in review long enough that they didn't have to get it. But I think
filtered some out,
right,
for sure.
For a lot of people, I think those a lot of those people, especially younger men and women that I talked to wanting the exemption, were concerned about how it might affect fertility because it was unknown. I mean, it's still unknown.
For sure.
The future effects. And so that was some of their biggest reservations were, I'm wanting to have kids. How is this going to affect me?
Do you have any idea how many times that's been used, that letter?
Well, one company, I know it was over 10,000 employees. Wow. So I know it's saved thousands of jobs. I did have one particular lady reach out. She was going to take the shot because she couldn't afford to lose her health insurance. She has a disabled child, and that was the only reason she was going to take it, was to make sure he had the care
a hard
that
situation
he
to put
needed.
in.
Right, and she was very much against taking it.
Yeah.
But the letter got approved, and she didn't have to take it. So fortunately,
awesome. It'd be cool to find out how many times it's been used.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Right. So I'm grateful. I hope my kids saw that I did something, and it wasn't just for these people. It was, I would never want them to be in a position as a young adult out in the career world, and they're being forced to do something like
and
that.
And it shows that you can actually make a difference, and you can create change, and you can fight for your rights.
Right.
I think people just don't understand that we really can do more than they think. And when you really just start getting into it, the entire system is a shit show. It's not put together correctly at all.
No.
They never anticipated it getting this bad, and then they never anticipated, because they put in place what we were supposed to do if it got this bad.
Right.
They never anticipated us allowing this to happen.
No.
But once I've started navigating some things, it's like after a certain point, there's not a single person paying attention to what these people are doing.
And that's what they're counting on.
Zero checks and balances.
Yeah.
And if you try to pursue anything legally, after a certain point, there's no more information on what to do because they never anticipated it really getting there.
There's no precedent. There's no legal precedents for what's taken place, right?
So the only answer is for the United States of American people to unite.
Right.
And to do something ourselves.
Right.
But I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't either.
I don't have a clue.
Like I said, it's been disheartening to see, but also it's been inspiring to see people that have.
But now you have a little
stepped
bit
up.
more experience than I do. You are a J6er.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Can we talk about that on
Absolutely.
here? All right.
Not ashamed of it.
FBI they're probably already listening.
They've already got my name. They've already got, all
So
my
tell me a little bit
information.
about that.
So, again, I was a fan of Donald Trump. I respected him. I respected what he did for our country. And when the election happened, I don't know if you were up that night watching as the election results were pouring in, but it was I went to bed thinking, well, he's got it because, these particular states, they've already counted the votes. Here's where we're at. He's won this state, this state, this state. So it's a done deal. And get up the next morning and find out, well, they found more votes overnight. And
You thought
flipped.
that
it
was going to be an
up till
honest
about
election?
2 a.m., 3 a.m. And they were calling it. They'd never done that before, where they were going ahead and saying
Immediately. And then
right.
things were going back on things, though, and
right.
things were changing.
It was a very unusual election night, and it just seemed off. I mean, for them to have found, you found votes in the middle of the
Once
night.
the whole SCAMdemic stuff and the mail-in ballots and this other, I just knew.
It was happening in cities that could either make or flip the state one way or another. It was just those particular states or cities having issues.
Yep.
And so the next morning to find out that he did in fact lose, it was shocking. And then you start, okay, something happened. And then you start, people are coming forward saying there was things
And we're
that
already
happened.
going through the SCAMdemic stuff, so you're already
There's
questioning
already questions
everything.
about their integrity.
Right.
And so when he put out, that he wanted to have this January 6th peaceful event, my husband and I and some friends of ours, we decided, you know what? He's done so much for our country.
Right.
We can go and show support.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you, we're gun owners. We're, we didn't take our guns. We weren't going there to have a battle with anybody.
Right.
We were going there to support him, to be there with other conservatives. Yeah, I've been to Washington, D.C. before, and I do believe...
It's a very crucial time in history.
Yeah, and I believe...
this will go down in books, and to be a part of it,
yeah.
There's times that we wish that we could have been a part of some things.
Right. I had parents that grew up during the civil rights era, and I'm familiar with protests, and to me, there is a way to protest things and do it safely and respectfully. And so we loaded up, went to January 6th. It was...
Did you fly or drive?
We drove.
Yeah.
It was very, I don't know how to explain it, festive. If you've ever went to some type of state ball tournament or something and everybody has their cars decorated, it was similar to that experience.
Parade.
Yeah, we got there the day before and we were running into people.
As you were traveling up,
people were honking at each other.
roadways-
Their cars were decorated and we were waving at people. I mean, it was, to me, it was lighthearted.
Right.
Yeah. And
no one was going there with bad intentions.
Not that I knew.
Other than
Not that I
the
personally
FBI
knew.
and CIA agents.
No. And, my thought was we're going to be up there at the Capitol and we're going to make our voices heard by standing outside the Capitol.
Yeah.
We already had...
Were you down, I guess, where he was speaking?
Yes.
And then walked
And then
with
he
everybody?
said that we peacefully walk up and make our voices heard.
When you were in the crowd, did you even think that there might be agents implanted in there, or did you notice any or anything like that? Or were you just kind of caught up in it and enjoying it?
We were just enjoying it. It was honestly, we were having a good time. Our thought process was that there had been they had signed their intent. A lot of the politicians had signed their intent, over 100, that they were going to send the votes back and have them looked at. That was what we thought was going to happen.
So you kind of thought that things were going to be honestly done.
They were going to they were actually going to send it back, investigate where there was some questions.
Yeah.
Which wasn't, I don't think, unfair to request because of the unusual circumstances surrounding some of the
people should know.
Right. But we were, like I said, we're there with a lot of 2A supporting people. Didn't see a single weapon. We, in fact,
So it didn't feel like things were off at all. It just felt like a normal patriotic good time.
We saw there was people there selling T-shirts, just having a good old time. There was
where I watched it on TV, and what they were showing there was you saw the immediate barricades going up and whatnot, and things were happening prior.
Well, they shut down the city, so you had no access to restrooms. They tried to make it difficult.
Wow.
They had one porta potty that I saw for however many people that were there.
Wow.
So we knew there weren't going to be restrooms to utilize. No facilities. We also knew going in that, well, when we get there, we get off the subway, we have zero cell service. We can't call out, we can't text, we can't do anything, nothing. It was like we had a ban on our phones. So we knew to stay together because we're like, can't get separated. We can't even call or text anyone.
Right.
So nobody, to my knowledge, like we couldn't live stream. We couldn't, now I did take some videos, but couldn't air it live.
There's no cell signal at all?
None. Wow. None at all. It was the strangest thing. It was like there was some type of something blocking, and it was all of our cell phones that day. And nobody around us had cell service, nobody at all. And so, but we were meeting people. There was people there from all over. There was groups there representing. There was like Immigrants for Trump. There was, all these different people.
Everybody friendly.
High-fiving.
Conversation. Yeah. Times.
They were playing music in between as the speakers would come out. People were doing the YMCA.
Were people conversating about how there wasn't any facilities and how there wasn't, maybe a medical staff that there should be, or, resources that should be there? Or was everybody just kind of in the moment and cool
in the
with
moment, but I think people were not super surprised. The way conservatives have been treated, I mean, it's not
it's
shocking.
Kind of to be expected.
Kind of to be expected,
okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we just, like I said, we kind of planned for it. We didn't take bottled water. We're like, well, we don't have restrooms, so, we'll just limit our water intake, and here we go. Like, we're just going to come out here. Trump was about an hour and a half later than what he was expected to come out and talk. There was other speakers ahead of him, all different people speaking. But again, it was very, it felt patriotic. It felt like we were there, we had a voice, and
kind of uplifting, maybe to think that see that many people united and not having any kind of ruckus or
when
what
Trump,
the TV would tell you.
Yeah,
was happening.
When he got done speaking and said, we're going to, walk up, make our voices heard, they were playing the YMCA, and people were staying around doing the because it was so many you couldn't move. And so at first people were doing YMCA. I mean, again, it didn't feel like we were running up to.
I mean, you got to think that when you have that many people, what was the weather like that day?
Cold. It was cold and
so inclement weather.
Very cold.
Not very pleasurable.
It wasn't raining necessarily, but it was like kind of a misty, just overcast day. Very
so not
overcast.
Real pleasurable.
No,
nice
weather was not great. Yeah.
So you've got that many people in that type of environment, no resources, whatever, but they're still getting along, they're not getting agitated with each other.
No.
And then all of a sudden they say that we've come to an insurrection, as they call it.
Right.
With zero proof of
Which was shocking, because as we like I said, we walked up, and we walked up to the Capitol. People were real, like I said, just real jovial, talking to one another. Yeah. And we did notice snipers on the roof, which, not surprising for security. We're like, well, whatever, security. But we get up, police are scooting the barricades back and waving people forward and saying, come up, because there's so many people coming forward. And so they were waving people up on the steps, up on the lawn. But
at that point, did it feel like they were just accommodating people?
I felt like they were just trying to make sure that people, there were so many, they were just trying to push, get you forward so that people could keep coming forward. Now, we didn't get up. We were obviously not in the building. We didn't, we were outside of the building, but they had moved a barricade over, and we had, where we could see up on a set of steps, and we all of a sudden started seeing smoke and hearing pops, and we were just like, what is going on? And still we're talking to people around us. We had met a busload of people that had come in Pennsylvania, and it was some people that they actually worked they had worked their polls, and they had witnessed for themselves.
Really?
Some things going on, and they got locked out of the building that night. It was very interesting. We were meeting people from all over. We met pastors there. We met business owners that were just, these COVID restrictions, we're over it. Yeah, we're over this, and we're here to stand for freedom, and we don't like what's happened, and we don't trust this election. We have some questions. Yeah. And
so everybody's intentions were pretty much the same.
Right. That's how I felt. Right. And then once we heard the smoke, we did hear some hollering. We heard there was a YouTube personality there. He was over by us rapping. People were singing God Bless America. There were some people praying. That's what I was around. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all of our phones started going off, an emergency alert. And we were like, because we hadn't had service all day.
Yeah.
Well, we get to, all of a sudden, our phones, we were getting text messages, phone calls from family and friends to get out of there, that the National Guard has ordered you out, that there's been an attack inside. And we were like, what? Like, what is going on?
So they were seeing what was on TV.
Right. They were seeing what was on TV.
You seen, now have you seen the footage that was shown on TV?
Well, what they've released.
Right. Well, I mean, was it completely different than what you experienced?
From what I was around, yes.
Yeah.
And, you've seen some of the footage of people just in there walking around. I could totally see that. The people that were there, like I said, we didn't see a weapon from what we could see.
Yeah.
The people that were there, were like us. They were just there hoping that, okay, the votes are going to come back to the states. It's going to be looked into. Our government's going to do their job and look into this. And that's not at all what happened. I mean, once we got, the city went on lockdown, there was a curfew put in place on the city. We were told to get...
So once all the smoke, I guess tear gas is probably what that was, and
right.
whatever.
So we had one of the people that came with us. He had went closer than we did. He didn't go inside the building, but he had went on up from where we were at. He had went more up where the steps were.
Yeah. That's pretty close.
And he was very close. And it was people coming up there, so they were being waved to come forward.
Yeah, welcoming them in.
Yes, welcoming them in. And according to him, there was some families there with younger kids. And as they came forward, because they were being directed to come forward, they started spraying them with tear gas. He started blocking people because he was like, we were just following direction, and here we're getting sprayed. And I didn't know why we were getting sprayed. And so he came back to us, joined back with us. We, as soon as we were ordered, to get out, that that they were going to be shut. We left. I mean, we went to the subway. We got on the subway. We left. But
it's wild that all of a sudden everybody's phones just started working
right?
again.
It was all of a sudden. I mean, it was like all over. You could hear an emergency alert going off, and we got back to our hotel and turned the news on. We were shocked. I mean, we had no idea.
It looked like you were looking at something completely different.
It did, and we had met, when we got back to our hotel in Arlington, there had been a small garage fire. I'm not sure what happened, but everybody was down in the lobby when we returned back, and there was a gentleman, we rode the hotel shuttle back with people that had been there as well. Yeah. And there was a gentleman there, he was a vet, and he had been inside the building, and he spoke with us, and he apparently was standing next to the lady that got shot.
Oh, wow.
And so he was telling us, what had happened. He had been sprayed. He had been hit with a rubber bullet in the leg. He had an injury on his leg from a rubber bullet. Wow. And he was talking about, he was just, I think, in shock seeing her get shot. So we spoke with him for a little bit.
From good to bad real quick.
It did very quick. And then what was being reported, I'm like, this is not at all what happened. Like, this is not what happened. And then I had tried to share, look, I'm here. Here's my pictures. Here's video. Immediately it took off social media for violating. I was inciting community or violence, inciting violence. Even the video of us just singing God Bless America, it was inciting violence.
It's crazy.
News to me. And so there was some businesses there that, in spite of the curfew, opened up. And so we congregated that night in a diner with some of the other people and had dinner. Because, here we are out of town. We, had to go eat somewhere.
Right.
And and people...
Especially after the day you endured.
Right. And everybody there, we were all just kind of not just in disbelief of what the media was reporting, because we had just been, and we're like, this is not at all what took place. Like,
you're still in that much shock, even that much into the SCAMdemic, where things were completely done wrong.
Because we were like, nobody around us was, I didn't feel like they were there to go to war. I mean, you got a bunch of gun owners here without their guns. The only ones causing
problems were the agents that were implanted there.
Yeah. And we had been told, there would be, the Antifa, you were warned about that. And they're there to give, good conservatives a bad name. And so, we tried to steer clear.
Right. Was there a whole lot of that there?
I think so. I think there was, they were there trying to get people like, let's go, let's charge, let's do that. And people are just kind of like, no, like, that's not what I'm here for.
The wrong crowd.
Right. Like trying to, get people to do, and people
There's
are just
that video, I think Ray something or
Ray Epps.
Yeah. That I've seen a lot of. And it's like,
that's a very questionable thing.
The agent, what allegedly he is, and I think there's pretty good proof that he is and whatnot. But there's video of him trying to instigate things, and everybody looking at him like, no, we're not here for that.
And that's the feeling,
like, it's so mind-blowing how many people still believe that it's an insurrection and the conservatives are there
worse than 9/11, I believe it's been described as. And
Kamala tries to say that stuff. But it's just wild how many people just don't even the evidence right here in front of you,
or question how these people are being treated. Question how these people that have been arrested and how they've been treated. I mean, this is not.
I mean, why is it okay for all of them to go to the streets and destroy police vehicles,
the double standard in place,
businesses and loot and steal?
Yes.
But it's not okay for the other group that they don't agree with to go just stand peacefully.
Right.
It's absolutely wild how this has happened. To me.
Yes.
So you get back home.
Yes.
What's happened since then? So I don't know a whole lot. I don't pay attention to most media stuff, but I do know that pretty much everybody that did have a cell phone that was in Washington that day is on a list, and I'm pretty sure the FBI is
and we've been
doing
told
some sort of investigations.
We've been
some
told
sort
that our names, friends of ours have been questioned.
Have you been contacted?
We have not been directly contacted. The friend of ours that was contacted about us and our name was mentioned, it was because they had seen an article that ran in our local newspaper. And then there was also an article that ran in Knoxville paper, and some things from our social media, which again, I'm not ashamed of. It was posted. And I think because we conversed back and forth, this person that was brought in and questioned by the TBI, FBI, our names was mentioned, and he told them basically we were just like him. We were there, but we didn't go in the building. If they wanted to look at our phones, look at our pictures, videos from that day, they could very well see exactly where we were at.
Even though you had no service. They can still track you.
I'm sure they could track it. Yeah, absolutely. And but nobody has, we did get people that when they saw our names, they found us on social media and sent threatening messages,
Was there, was there ever a point that you thought something might happen because you were there and just that simple fact alone?
Yes. When I found out that a friend of ours had been taken into Knoxville and was being questioned, that was there, and our names was mentioned, we did make sure that our children had our attorney's phone numbers. And
there was a plan in place.
We had a plan in place. If we get picked up, call our attorney, and, we'll go the legal route. I mean, we didn't do anything wrong. And we knew we didn't do anything wrong. And
but even trying to have confidence in going the legal route these days,
can you really trust the legal system? It's hard. It's scary. I will say one thing that came out of COVID was our daughter, decided for sure on her career path. She's graduating in December from college and going to be going to law school.
Nice.
And she's wanting to pursue constitutional law. She looked around and saw what was happening in our world and wants to do something to help. Was she involved or interested before SCAMdemic stuff, or did that really? Honestly, what really sparked her during actually the semester that when it was her sophomore year, when the schools did shut down in March, she was in a government class, and it was phenomenal. It was a local class here, great teacher. He really challenged the kids, taught them a lot about our government, and I think that's when she fell in love with the Constitution, and it really interested her. She's always been interested in history, but I think that government class really piqued her interest. And then when the school shut down and she saw what was happening around our country, she was like, this isn't right. And
you said she was a sophomore?
She was a sophomore in high school when it happened.
The second semester then?
Yeah, second semester, because school shut down in March. They didn't go back. Our schools, fortunately, did go back in August that same year. A lot of schools didn't. But
how was it for your kids being?
So when
she was a little, being a sophomore in high school is different than some of the young kids.
So unfortunately, with our kids being older and being in advanced classes, we didn't really, homeschool was not really an option for us. Mad respect for everyone that was able to homeschool. We really felt torn sending our kids back that August because our schools did implement a mask policy that we completely disagreed with. We reached out to our local administration.
And would your letter go against that too? Did that work for the mask?
No, it did not. It was, this is how it's going to be. And our kids were like, we want to go to school. So what do you do?
What happened if they didn't wear a mask?
So they, they stood in the hallways and told them to get their mask on. They had to wear it in between class changes. They could take it off once they sat down, kind of like in a restaurant. I mean, it was the most senseless thing. When they played sports, they didn't have to have a mask on. So unfortunately, our kids did have to wear the mask. It created, actually, I felt like more sickness for our kids. Our daughter
sitting there breathing your own stuff all day.
Our daughter had
moisture building in there
repeatedly that year, and got it so bad she'd never had any issues with her ears. It actually got into her ear, and she's had ear infections ever since. And so, I mean, I think it did more harm. I'm sure there's other people that had, kids were having.
We don't even have any idea what the long-term effects are going to be.
No, they had staph infections. I know, we're dealing with the younger kids that were delayed as far as their verbal skills, as far as their being able to express, things.
A lot of learning speech is the ability to see the movements.
Right. And read the facial expressions. And so it did a lot of harm. And I hated that our kids wore masks. I mean, my kids know that I spoke out against it. It upset a lot of local people. They were like, why can't you just be quiet? Why can't you just,
Why aren't they speaking up?
This isn't right. Yeah, it's not right.
We're not supposed to be quiet.
No.
Did your kids get any pushback at school from other peers or staff or anything?
Peers and staff, unfortunately. Yeah. Kids would see my I decided I made my social media public because I didn't feel like I had anything to hide, to be ashamed of. And I wanted to be vocal. I wanted to be vocal about these issues going on.
Well, it was obvious you didn't need to preach to the people only people you knew at the same time either. Right.
And so I didn't, so kids, they would see, there was parents that quit speaking to us. Staff would make little snippy comments to our kids, and
it's pretty weird how, for the most part, the side that didn't believe in the mask and mandating things and whatnot, political beliefs aside, just that factor alone, the people that didn't believe in the mask versus the people that did, we were okay. I didn't necessarily think it was a good idea for you, and I would have liked to give you the reasons why it was
But if you
more
wanted to wear a
harmful than
mask,
good. Right, but if you do it, fine. I don't want you touching something before I do because I've seen how often you touch your face now, but whatever, But then it was if you had our stance on it, was the people that had to say something to us.
Right.
And then if we didn't, accept it correctly or operate the way they wanted us to, it was even worse. And it's absolutely crazy to me how
we
they
were
would act
required, we had to have a mask, not on our face necessarily, but just have it on our wrist to walk into our children's ball games.
That's crazy.
And, again, I know the staff working the gates.
At that point, though, it's obvious that it's about compliance.
Absolutely.
How many people can we get to wear one on the wrist?
Yeah. And I know the staff was just doing what they were told to do, and, whatever, but
at some point, we got to stop doing what everybody's told to do.
Do you realize this, how ridiculous this is?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild to me.
Right.
And it's even more wild that you couldn't try to help people understand.
Right.
I think now some people are open to it.
Right.
But they're still not willing to admit that they were wrong.
No.
And you can't grow until you do.
Right.
It's okay. No one's going to fault them for it. We understand. But
I guess my question is for people, where are you going to draw that line and stand? What's the hill you're willing to die on?
I thought that they would have done it when it came to their faith and how they practice their religion.
When it comes to your kids, are you not willing to stand up for your kids? This is not healthy for your kids.
Right. And we haven't even touched all the other things that go on involving them.
Right.
Before we do that, though, so your daughter.
Yes.
I've seen her speak out at some of the school board meetings and things. Is she really just trying to take off with that and get involved as much as possible?
So she did start paying attention. Before she decided to go into law, she had wanted to be a teacher. She, and that's really where I thought what she would do when she grew up was be a teacher. From the time she was a toddler, she played school, wanted to be a teacher. She idolized her teachers. There was teachers in this community that she would work summer camps with, that she volunteered, and she loves school. She would do back to school countdowns.
Yeah.
She loves school supplies. She likes to go down the school supply aisles at the store and just look at the school supplies. She asked for school supplies for Christmas every year just to update her spring school supply. I mean, she loves school.
Yeah.
And I think when all of this happened, it really started making her question, the way she saw some of these people that she'd always idolized. And it did bring into light things going on because, kids were being, for those few months, you were doing digital learning, you were doing, so parents had more access to curriculum and started asking questions. But one thing that got us personally involved, I have teachers that I'm friends with, family members, and some of them had reached out and they had some concerns about our CKLA, which is our language arts curriculum here in our county.
Right.
And for them, they felt like there was some issues with it. They had tried expressing their concerns to their administrators. They didn't feel like they were being heard. They felt like if maybe a parent expressed some concern, that maybe it might prompt there's some things to be done about. Issues being not so much that it was just horribly explicit. It was not really age appropriate.
Right.
It was
insinuating other things.
Right.
Maybe.
It was delving into things like world religion in first grade. Things that we didn't discuss till we were much older.
Right.
We've got kids in our county that are already behind because of COVID. We've got kids in our county that need extra help with reading because of whatever issue going on. And teachers are, things more and more are being piled upon as far as, now we want you to teach this.
Yeah.
And it was things the teachers just felt like, some of the teachers that I spoke with, that they just really weren't comfortable with. They felt like there was kids that lacked basic skills, and they were teaching things that were not going to be useful to the kids.
Why do you think they were afraid to speak out for themselves?
I think because, honestly, I don't know. I think some of them did. They tried going through the proper channels. And like, for example, one teacher was told if she wasn't willing to read this particular book with her students, they would send somebody in from central office that would do her job.
Wow.
And so I think they just felt like, well, they don't want to hear us, but maybe they'll listen to a parent.
Yeah.
And so, that's when I took some of their concerns. They, some of them sent me some worksheets and things that they were like, and again, it wasn't anything that was horribly inappropriate. Right. It was just things it didn't make sense that you're trying to teach a 6-year-old this.
Yeah.
And there's things.
And you have to be proactive because we've learned, and common sense too, though, if you don't stay on top of it now, that's when things start getting pushed in that you don't even see.
Right.
And,
it trickles
it's
in.
obvious to us now more than ever. We really do need to pay attention because we blindly trusted for so long.
Right. And when you look
when you start looking into it, when you start looking into it, the pushback that we get from looking into it, that's like the double whammy of now we really need to know what the hell's going on.
Why are parents being treated this way by their local
Why is there not an
educators?
open invitation for all of us to work together?
By their central office, by their school boards. Like, why are you being treated this way? For asking questions, for wanting to be involved in your child's education. And the more we started looking, it was, okay, now we're also been made aware of our social emotional learning, which is a guidance curriculum that's being used nationwide. Schools are required to have, and they have to select, they have certain programs they have to select from that's CASEL approved. And once we started really looking at, okay, who funds this? What is this? And how this company did something called Transformative SEL as of 2020, which really pushes topics like social justice. Yeah,
timelines, they really didn't think about. If they wanted to try to squeeze some things in under the radar, they didn't get their timelines very right.
Right. And so we've had a lot of questions about that, and other states are questioning and pushing back. And, at this point, of course, the media and different things are trying to make it, this is just a crazy conspiracy, misinformation, conservative issue. But if you really start looking, if you actually take the time to go in and look at some of these lessons, which we have, a lot of them, you start seeing they're addressing things, trying to address things with children that maybe only a licensed therapist or psychologist should be addressing, not somebody that's not really qualified. And, you know, there's been instances where parents feel like it's increasing the idea of suicide with their children. It's increasing trauma. Maybe the child has previous trauma, and it's, you know,
the
bringing
conversations
that.
they're having with the guidance counselors at school.
Right. And it's things, you know, like some of the middle school lessons.
What kind of training does a guidance counselor go through the same schooling as a teacher does? Or they, you know,
They do have some additional,
kind of
but it's not the same thing as if you went and met with someone that's actually a licensed therapist or psychiatrist. And some of these things,
which ideally their job is just to offer a little bit of guidance in you know, certain areas, not to get overly involved.
Right.
In
and on the
situations.
surface, you know, they say, well, don't you want your child to have empathy? Don't you want your child to not be a bully? Well, yeah, that's a given.
Our job is to do teach them those things.
But this particular social emotional learning goes deeper than that. And it starts addressing things like some of the lessons. It's encouraging kids to talk to their trusted educator instead of their trusted family member. It's to increase, you know, just a little bit. It's to
separate the home.
But do it in such a way, it's very subtle, very subtle.
And that's taken the entire indoctrination and manipulation to a complete different level.
Right.
We know now it was done to us. And I am curious on what it's done, like, through the educators, through their schooling, how much is done in that, because why do you need 8 years to teach math in certain languages and stuff? You know, just what are they really learning through all that? And I'm not going to judge until I know, but I'm very curious because a lot of things don't make sense. But we know that we were indoctrinated and manipulated. So we know that we have to stop it now. But they're also piggybacking a whole bunch of other shit on top of it. And we're trying to tackle one while also investigating another. And then when you start asking questions and looking and things,
you get the pushback that you get.
It's rough.
But I think, you know, my daughter, with her interest in education, you know, her thing was, you know, some of this just isn't right, you know, and for us, you know, we'd had a pretty positive experience with our kids from primary school up until high school. And, you know, what was shocking was some of these educators that we've known for years since our kids were in kindergarten, that we've had a wonderful relationship with, that we went on field trips with, that we showed up at all the school events. Like I said, that my daughter actually went in and worked in some of their summer camps and had a personal relationship with. They have, you know,
both of your kids are involved in sports and other things too. They are extracurricular things.
But some of these educators took it on themselves to, like, block us from public website. I mean, things that were just, they were so offended that we would even dare question.
It's so weird.
You know, things. And, you know, to me, that was shock, because I'm like, these people know us. You know, we know them, and we don't have to align on every single issue, but they know we're not, you know, horrible people. They know we're not mean people. This is not an attack on you personally. We know a lot of this is federally mandated. It's not even, you know, it's paying attention, you know, what is being mandated to your local school.
It makes you wonder how much social emotional learning is taught to them in their further
And now
education.
we're learning that they're including the SEL in math curriculum. I mean, why do you need that in math? You know, and it's as simple as, like, at the bottom of a math worksheet, how did this project make you feel? How did you feel working with a partner on it? I mean, who cares? Who cares how it makes you feel?
They have enough information on us as it is.
But I mean, if somebody asked me about if I had the option to feel about math, I mean, when I was personally in school, I would have felt like I didn't need it. I hated math. But it is, you know, it's a skill. It's something that needs, you know, to be taught. But, you know, who cares how it makes you feel?
It doesn't need to be reinvented 50 times like
Your
it is.
employer's not going to come, how does this job make you feel today? How does this project make you feel? Just get it done.
Get the results. That's all that matters.
Do your job.
It doesn't even matter how you get them sometimes. What encouraged her to speak and use her voice at those school board meetings? So
we also, once we started with the language arts, it opened up, like I said, it led to us looking into the SEL. And then we had a particular app that was on all of our countywide Chromebooks called the Epic Library app. Well, we realized that on that Epic app, which was available from our K all the way up through our senior Chromebooks, there was no filter. So basically, some parents had realized also kids didn't bring Chromebooks home until they were, I believe, 6th grade is when kids can start bringing them home overnight. But this
Was
particular...
this something they've always had, or was it
So it's been
really
around
pushed
for a
in
couple
COVID?
years. When we started realizing it was supposedly to help improve, reading, gives them access to a digital library, which in and of itself, that sounds like a great idea.
On the surface.
On the surface, right? But this particular app was only available from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. So if it's to improve reading, why was it not available 24 hours for kids to use when they're home or on weekends, and they want to read a book, right? And why could you not set, there's certain books that a kindergartner has no business looking at that a senior in high school should have access to. So there should have been some filters in place. And we reached out directly to the creator of the app. They said there would be no filters. They wanted to keep it the way that it was. And so when we took it to our local central office, and they seemed surprised at the fact that it didn't have the filters. And at that point we thought, well, these people, we've showed them this, maybe they'll do something. They had no intention of doing anything. And it took state legislation to remove it because the state agreed it was not appropriate. And it's not about banning books. It's not about, it's not about censoring information. It's kids, like I said, there's books that a 5-year-old shouldn't read that an 18-year-old, obviously there's a huge difference. And, just for example, both of our children going through school, they always tested ahead in their reading. And so they were always reading several grade levels ahead. But just because they could read on a certain level when they were in 3rd grade doesn't mean they needed to read a book that was for a 17, 18-year-old kid. And so,
just because they know the words doesn't mean they understand the context.
Absolutely. And so, we were careful. And, again, we, as their parents, decided when was the appropriate time to have these conversations. Obviously, we knew they were going to be faced with these issues and things, and we did have conversations in our home. But I think there's certain things that the school really has no business touching upon with your children. And again, it's not about banning books and whatever they're trying to say it's about. It's just about, keeping our children's innocent for as long as we can.
Well, regardless, they're your children.
They're your children.
It's your decision what they
and
do,
not
don't
contradicting,
do, have access to, or don't
the
have
family,
to.
Not contradicting someone's upbringing, and being respectful of the fact that, kids are brought up to believe different things. And I'm not going to, just like, for example, there was a boy that used to be in class with me in middle school, Jehovah's Witness. They didn't celebrate Christmas and Santa and all that stuff. And so he didn't participate. If we were doing an art project that was Santa Claus, he didn't participate. And nobody said anything. Nobody made a big deal about it. But, I think...
I think we've
went away
back
from,
in
not
the whole
being
diversity
respectful.
things and whatnot.
Right. And not being, we went from... we raised our kids to be tolerant. We're Americans. We think, we believe in being tolerant, but that doesn't mean they have to accept or participate in things.
I think there's
they can
definitely
be respectful.
a fine line there, but a line that a lot of people don't even know
I don't think they
anymore.
know the difference anymore. I think people honestly believe if you don't accept and participate in something, then you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a...
What are all these words?
All these different words
from?
going around, that people want to throw at you. But, and it's very sad to see that we've come to that, especially when I know...
They just want everybody to believe their way.
Right.
They're not okay believing our way.
Right.
Or anybody's other than themselves.
Right.
It's wild how... I go back to emotionally weak society has become.
Right.
And they just lack even the ability to see anything from a different perspective.
Right.
And even the idea that life could be any different.
Right.
Or, they're just not even open. It's unless the information is given from this, not believing it.
Right.
And if it's this, that, and the other, I am emotionally triggered.
Right.
And flying off the handle.
Yes.
And it's absolutely crazy to me how easily people have done such.
Right.
It's just like they don't even control their own lives anymore.
Their own minds, their own nothing.
They're just robots.
No. Nope. So our daughter, I mean, she recognized a lot of this. And for her, it was, little kids shouldn't be reading some of this stuff. Little kids shouldn't be seeing this. And
so it put her more like an advocate.
It did.
Mindset.
And her idea was, no, a 5-year-old shouldn't have access to a book about sex.
Right. Yeah.
I'm 16, they're 5. We shouldn't have access to the same material.
Right.
And so that was what she spoke out about, was this app. And she felt like, if it couldn't be filtered, if parents couldn't set up parental controls, just like at your own home. If, a lot of parents have it set up on their televisions that their kids cannot access things that are rated certain things that have certain material in it. And to me, it's no different with what they're reading.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, but they can do that, and they don't have to let everybody else know, or they don't have to
Right.
have a controversial conversation about it.
They can keep it
Yeah.
private. And
I think that the whole gentle parenting movement and just lack of confidence and emotional weaknesses created people who were just, it's too overwhelming
Right.
for them to think about doing something. Right. And they think that it's going to be controversial if they say that they don't agree with you or
Right.
align with you or something.
Right.
And that to them is just, it's easier to go along and comply with what I don't agree with than to face the fear of whatever it may be.
Right.
And to a point, they're going to continue getting manipulated to where it's going to be a life and death situation, and they're not prepared.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't know how to get these people to understand that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know I don't even know if there is. It might just be the way that the cookie crumbles, and
Right. You're on one
nature
side.
take its toll, and it is what it is. But
Yeah.
until then, I'm at least going to try to help some
Right.
people.
I mean, I don't like to think that it's hopeless, that all hope is. I think there's hope for everybody, but I think,
I don't know.
It's
you
hard.
can't give hope to the hopeless.
Right.
And people
Right.
just don't have it.
But I think the best thing to do is just to lead by example and to show that your family, we're doing something different,
Right.
and we're not going to comply. And we are going to say when something isn't right. And you can hate us for it. You can call us names. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's your right to do
It's
so, I
unfortunate
guess.
that they get
But,
that beat up about it.
I mean, if we inspire one person to do some research and to, go into their child's classroom and
Right.
find out, so what is this? What lessons are you showing my kid?
And we're not automatically saying everything is wrong.
No.
We're saying that we've realized we've blindly trusted something.
And there's always
that
room for
shouldn't be
improvement.
trusted,
I
and we
mean,
need to just be aware of what's happening.
Right.
Everything could be fine, or it
Right.
couldn't be.
Right.
But we need to know.
Right.
And it's okay to find out.
There needs to be transparency, with our schools, with our, parents should be able at any point to look and
Right.
see what their kids are learning.
Yeah.
And
They're our
and
responsibility.
it shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be a process. It shouldn't be.
Especially in today's society.
No, with their
the digital
advanced
era,
technology, absolutely.
should have access to it
absolutely.
immediately.
Yeah. And I mean, where I work, my place of business, we have cameras. We're on camera all the time. It's for our security. It's
Right.
for our guest security. And, when I'm at work, I'm on camera. I'm okay with that.
Right.
I mean, fine. Watch me. See what I do today.
Right. Well, it could be expected in, positions like
Right.
that. I do believe that we're being way too policed in that aspect
Right.
in some areas.
Right.
But I just don't know what the deal is with these people that just don't even stand up for what they believe in and fight for their rights. And
Well, I think,
I just,
I
don't know how to combat that.
think, I think the key word is fight. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not something, I didn't wake up one day and decide I want to go and piss off everybody that I know and make half my friends unfriend me on social
But
media.
that wasn't your intentions either.
No. And, I think once somebody sees kickback, I think it scares them. They see what kickback other people are getting, and they don't want to stir that pot. And, some parents have
But
even.
their life is getting harder by not.
Some parents have said they don't want to speak out because their kid might not get playing time in a ball game. Oh, okay. I'm okay with that.
There might not be ball games if you don't speak up.
There you go. And
Do you think people just don't realize that it could get that bad?
I think they
You think
don't
they think that there might come
it
to a
can
point it's just
personally
done?
affect them, right? Yeah. I don't think they realize and how quickly it can personally affect you and your family and your kids and your, future grandkids and whatever. I mean, and maybe that's what it's going to take. And I hate that. I don't want somebody to have to suffer.
No.
But I think, some people, unfortunately, they just don't realize. And,
you can lead a horse to water.
Nope.
But you can't force it to drink.
Nope. And I think people are missing out on the fact, just like, for example, gentle parenting, that's this new concept that's taken off. And to me, I don't get it. It's not biblical. And if you're a Christian and you've, read your Bible, it's pretty clear.
It doesn't even work.
I mean, we've got a guidebook.
It doesn't matter what you believe in.
Right.
It doesn't work for a functioning society.
Yeah. And these parents that are doing it and having to deal with, their kids' tantrums and different behavioral issues, I mean, how's it working out for you?
I'm sure their stress levels are just perfectly fine.
Right. And some of these people that, I can't wait to get my kids in schools, that'll be the school's problem. How's that fair to our schools? It's not.
That's society's problem.
Right. It's not fair to our educators. I mean, our teachers, and this is something, I've went before our board and stated this. I've went even to our local mayor and stated this. If a child without, that it's not because anything to do with any type of disability, but if they cannot behave themselves to the point that the classroom can't be a conducive learning environment, they have no business being there. Let them go to the house till they can act like somebody and can sit in a classroom and
make the parents deal with it, and they might start doing something about it.
Right. And I get it. Kids aren't supposed to sit 8 hours a day. I get it. But, we have some pretty great teachers that do know what to do to, get their kids up and keep the lessons going. But when you've got,
utilize the classroom,
1 or 2 kids that are that disrespectful, that have that much, to the teacher, to their fellow classmates,
but,
nobody's learning anything.
It's the trickle-down method. The teacher's hands are tied.
Right.
They can't do
There's
anything.
no consequence.
So they're just sitting back and tolerating and accepting it, which is enabling the bad behavior.
Right.
The parents aren't doing anything about it. So it's just teaching the children that that's normal behavior.
Right. Positive reinforcement.
Right. But then when they get out into society, it's not the way that it's going to work. It's going to reject it very hard.
Well, they're going to have so many more issues that is unnecessary for them. And you're setting your child up to fail as an adult.
100%.
To, when you...
And they're taking the easy way out.
Right. And parenting is hard. It's a daily thing, and it's not easy. And
there's no guidebook. You just kind of, each individual figures it out as they go.
I mean...
And that's all right.
I mean, I think, we tried to follow, Christ disciplines us. And so we believed in discipline in our home. Yeah. And we tried to raise our kids, and we disciplined our children. Yeah. And people ask me,
there has to be consequences for actions.
Why are your kids, the way that they are? Well, I mean, you're not going to like the answer. Right. But here's what it is. We did discipline, and we have consequence when our kids didn't do what they were supposed to do. And, I hope that we've raised kids that, and so far, I feel like looking at who our kids are today, I feel like our hard work has paid off so far. And,
yeah, you'll have a return on investment
perfect.
for sure.
Don't get me wrong; they're not perfect.
Right.
And
that's okay.
And they're not. I don't expect them to be perfect, but for the most part, they've not gotten into what a lot of their peers have fallen into. Yeah. And
how's that for them? Being kind of.
It's hard. It's about like us being conservatives. They are the small minority. We had conversations.
A lot of their friends kind of just comply with things and go with the easy way.
So much easier. So much easier to go to parties and
it's not in the long run.
Drink and to, even if you're, even if that's not really your thing, just to participate and act like you want to participate in it. Right. Kids are becoming sexually active a lot younger than like when we were in school. Right. And, these conversations, parents need to be having these sometimes daily. I mean, we had these conversations, and the thing is, help your children realize these things before they're actually in the position, before they're standing at that party, somebody's handing them a beer, or before.
Prepare them.
Right, prepare them. Have these, prepare them for it. Help them to realize, look, here's what can happen if you choose this path. Here's what can happen if you choose this path. Right. And it's not easy. It's going to be a very narrow path. And it's a lot harder than when we were in school.
Especially today.
Especially today. They're bombarded.
Society is set up to go against them 100%.
Now more than ever, pray for your kids. Pray every day for our kids. Yeah. And sometimes multiple times a day for our kids, because they are facing battles we never had to face, ever.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too. We're at a point in time where there's literally so much difference in generations.
So much.
And we're stuck in that generation that we understand, you know, a large portion of the generation before us.
Right.
And now, you know, we understand I feel like it's getting smaller and smaller with the advancements of technology so fast.
I mean, our
and us
kids
getting
have
older,
never
but
known a day without technology.
We know the generation below us, you know,
Right.
aligned with their adaptation of it. And then we have us that adapted and using both.
Right. We remember before all this technology, and we remember when it came into play. And,
right. So I think that we are in a very crucial point, especially with everything going on, that it is up to our generation to really help. If we can't fix it, at least try to bring everything together in alignment.
Right.
Because we've seen
both sides.
Both sides, and we've navigated through how it can work. I mean, I don't think that our parents' generation fully understand that children these days have no idea what our raising was like.
Right.
Like some things seem like aliens.
Like foreign concepts.
Artificial.
Like not having a cell phone.
Right.
Not having internet.
Yeah. But they don't realize that because it was so slow for even us growing up until, you know, our late teen years, early 20s.
Right.
And which is okay.
Right.
What's not okay is the not understanding of that and not accepting that you don't understand.
Right.
Because that's where we hit the barrier, and people aren't able to work together.
Right.
If they can't admit the problem, they don't understand the problem, we can't start coming to a solution.
Yep. And we have to be able to evolve with everything that's changing. I mean, with, you know, all this stuff that our kids are on, all these apps, all these things that kids are into.
Dangerous.
You know, if you don't know, start learning.
Yeah.
Start trying to figure it out because,
We've seen, we used to let the little one have a tablet.
Right.
I have to somewhat stop myself from saying things.
Yes.
And they'd watch YouTube and stuff, and we would find age-appropriate things or whatnot.
Right. But then the ads that pop up.
The ads, and then what the suggested videos were and stuff were things that were nothing what was even related to what we approved him to watch, much less was okay for him to watch
that fell
at
under
that age.
that rating and the parental controls.
And we removed the tablet for behavioral things and stuff, and that was like the final straw on it for good, and behaviorally is leaps and bounds so much better.
Right.
But people are using those things to babysit their kids and to occupy them and stuff, and they don't even understand what they're seeing.
Right. What are
and then when you
kids
try to
being
tell them
exposed
that,
to?
they're like, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow that. My 6-year-old isn't seeing naked people on YouTube. They don't allow that on YouTube.
Oh, buddy.
My Instagram feed shows it to me, and I don't subscribe to any of it.
Instagram Reels,
But it's crazy to me how just unwilling these people are to, regardless if they decide to do something about it or not.
It's not just social media.
They need to be able to see what's right in front of them.
This online gaming, you know, kids are bullying each other through online gaming apps. And I don't know if parents realize, you know, some of the stuff that can be said, even, you know, you think you're doing the right thing because you're keeping your kid off Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. Great. But if they have any type of digital contact, even with kids from school, kids from your church, you better be knowing what's in some of these messages. And
not
paying
everybody's
attention.
Morals align with each other anymore.
And kids get real brave, you know, typing something than how they say something.
Yeah.
And
so do adults.
True. Adults too. That's very true. Yes. But, you know, and for kids, they can't see, you know, and this is how we were as kids. You can't see 5 years down the road.
Right.
You know, what's happening that day. It seems like the end of the world. It feels like the end of the world.
It really does.
And one bad day, it can feel like I have nothing to live for. I have nothing, you know. And unfortunately,
but then
you have
sleep
to.
And tomorrow's another day.
Right. You have to help your kids have a future focus. And that's one thing we've talked to our kids for years. How does your decisions today, how's that going to affect your future?
Right.
How's that going to help you get a scholarship? How's that going to help you in the job you're wanting to do and career you're wanting to have? And, you know, you have to help your kids realize, number one, you're not invincible.
No.
You know, you've got to, you know, you can't drive 100 miles an hour going down this road just because you feel like you can and you're, you know, want to have some fun. And there's consequences. And, you know, I think it's just as adults guiding kids. That's, you know, your job as an adult.
Yeah.
And like I said, it is a job and it's a daily thing. It's not, you can't slack off.
No.
And
the minute you do, the evil of the world and society is working.
if you're not having the conversation,
24/7,
somebody's having these
365.
conversations with your kid.
Yep.
And if
you're not in their ear, something is.
Right. You might want to be that voice of reason.
Yeah. And I think that, too, a lot of people don't realize that amount of access.
Right.
You
They
know?
don't.
I mean,
like I said,
we have some, and I've stopped using technology and stuff less than I did before, but I sometimes forget how much they hear and see, and how resilient their minds are, and how much they can pick up.
They absorb so much.
Whatnot. And it's, I mean, we can't shelter them from society because the ones that, the ones that we're trying to help need to be out and figuring it out. But society's got to change.
Right.
All of it.
Right.
I don't care necessarily how it's done, but it needs to be.
Yeah.
I don't think that people fully realize how much power and control we have.
Right.
Everybody. No one can say that the majority of the population doesn't hate where we are in society right now.
Right. Right.
That's a fact.
Yes.
We know it.
Right.
Tomorrow could be a completely different life.
Yes.
For all of us.
Yep. Well, look how quickly those lockdowns came into play. I mean, it was from one day to the next.
All we have to do is decide we're done with this shit. Mm-hmm. We're not going to let them control our lives anymore.
Right.
We are going to go back to what this country was founded on.
Yep.
We start working together unanimously. Doesn't matter what everybody's differences are.
Yeah.
We just need to take the control away from them and give it back to ourselves.
Yep.
To then be who you want to be.
Yep.
And then if we have social differences, work them out amongst ourselves through there.
Yeah.
But the system that we have in place is not working.
It's not working. And you would think people would see that it's not and feel that it's not and realize, I don't want to keep living like this. I mean, for our family, it's love Christ, love your spouse, cherish your marriage, make that a priority, and then be a good parent and, get married, have kids, go against what society right now is telling you is the norm and focus on your family. And, that's where it starts. It starts in your home. And then from there, you can take it out to your community. And it can gain traction, have a ripple effect, and you just never know.
Do you think you have ultimately had more of a positive effect in return than a negative?
I hope so. I really do. I hope so. I mean, I didn't set out to attack and be, someone that just attacks. What people are doing.
Well, if that wasn't your intention, then you weren't. If that's how they perceived that was on them.
It was to speak truth. It did challenge. I hope I challenged people. And I hope, and I did say this is wrong. And I think one thing we've done, we've taken issues that aren't political or, that we've tried to make moral issues political. And, I think for me, there's a very big divide there. I mean,
the two don't mesh.
Right. Those two do not mesh for me. It's not about politics. It's about...
I'm at the point we don't even need political thought.
Right and wrong.
That's on the back burner. We got a lot more to fix before we can start worrying about that.
I hope so. I know of people that have went and got subbing jobs strictly because they do want to be more involved and because they've seen some social media posts and they want to be there and see what's going on. And I'm glad. I'm
just get a little bit more involved.
I'm happy. I mean, great. Get inside. Find out, everybody should be being involved and proactive in what's going on with their children and what's going on in their county and their state, their country.
Right.
And it is hard. Like I said, it's hard when you're busy and you're parenting young children. I get it. Like time, it's hard. It's hard to find the time to read the articles, to gather the information. But when something feels off, pay attention to that feeling. Pay attention to the double standards. Is this really the world you want to set your kids out to right now? Maybe you've got a 3-year-old and you haven't thought about 15 years down the road when they go off to college. But what's our country going to look like when that baby goes off to college? And is it where would you be okay with putting your child out into the world?
Do you think that people can really think that way anymore and with an open mind think that there's a possibility it would get that way? If they don't already think that, if they don't already understand it now,
they don't understand.
Do you think that they can, if they don't have the ability, do you think that they can learn the ability or somehow figure it out to even imagine that that's a possibility? Or do you think that there is seriously something, disorder or illness or lack of who knows what it could possibly be that is critically stopping people from being able to function completely?
I think there is definitely a hold on people. I think when you've got people from all over repeating the same things, using the same insults, there's a hold there.
Yeah.
There's some type of, and I don't know how to break those chains. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know how you break that hold on people's minds and control over it's basically control over, it's taking control of their entire lives, body, mind, and spirit. And
well, then we're facing the other problem of the pharmaceuticals that you go in and if you're not thinking the right way or this, that, the other, well, then you must need some mental health medication.
Need a drug, and here's this drug, and we're going to help you.
They had me on that stuff for 20 years, and it numbed me completely.
Yeah.
I got off of it in 2020 once I saw what was really going on. But it's completely wild how that works. I mean, I came to where I was and did what I did today, but I realize now if I hadn't have been on any of that,
life
been
might have
so
been
much further.
Different, yeah.
And especially enjoyable because now I genuinely enjoy my experiences. Where before it gets you so numb and just mentally kind of in a fog that you're just kind of going through the paces.
I think people are lacking coping skills. I think that's one thing. I think we've been taught, if you're having a bad day, you're a victim, or here's a drug that's going to make you have a better day.
Yeah, that ain't how it works.
And, sometimes you're just going to have a crappy day, and
I think that they remove the guidance and the promoting of people's abilities to really do more than they think they can. I mean, I know for a fact that we can do more than we have ever been taught.
Absolutely.
For a fact. People have forgotten to realize how amazing we are.
Right.
I mean, you can cut me today, and within a week, I will be healed, and I won't have to do a thing.
Yes. Yep.
And I didn't do anything to have that kind of superpower.
Right.
My body heals itself, and regardless of what people think and how we got here or whatnot. They can't deny that.
Right.
It's completely wild to me how people have just given up and lost that ability to think that they can control themselves and can do more than what they're told.
Right. Yes.
We are amazing creatures, and we have been given the opportunity to do things, and people are just wasting away.
Right. I think people are struggling with their identities, with who they are, and I think, that starts with, for our family personally, we have our foundation and our identity in Christ.
Right.
And I think when you have that, it gives you that foundation. And that's what so many people are missing. Yeah. They're missing that foundation and they struggle. And it's so sad to see it because I know the answer, can tell you the answer,
right.
Can't make you accept the answer. Yeah. And, and I think, Christ has an intention and a purpose for every one of us. And so many are missing out on that.
Yeah.
And what the purpose is and what, could be such a better life. And,
regardless of what they believe.
Yeah.
If they believe in some sort of creator or some sort of higher power, and start at least opening up to those concepts and start navigating their life in that way, they can navigate it to, it's not our jobs to tell them exactly, it's just our jobs to lead by example give them opportunity. But, I feel like leading by example these days is so much better than trying to force verbiage down people's throats because that
I agree.
has been tried for so long.
I want people to look at our family, and again, we're not perfect, and we've got our issues, and but I want people to see something there and them to realize, I want what they have. And it's not that we're wealthy, that we've got the nicest house in the community. We don't. But that, you know, you can make a marriage last. You can be a parent and have kids that grow up and become something, and you can help navigate those teen years and help them avoid some of these pitfalls.
Right.
And, you know, people, I think, struggle with oppression. I think they struggle with, there's so much. And as a society, I think, you know, it's hard to watch people struggle and to know, you know, man, you know, if they only could just, they're missing that just one little, you know, thing, and they could have, you know, not a perfect life. We're not guaranteed a perfect life.
At least start in a better direction.
But I mean, I think, again, we have our identity. You know, we raised our children with knowing, you know, the Bible's very specific on gender roles.
Yeah.
And so there's no confusion about what this means, what that means. And we have these conversations. And, you know, so many are just, I guess, lost is the word. And I think that's why it's so easy to gravitate and grasp on to whatever the media is telling you, what social media is telling you. And, you know, I think it creates fear, confusion, all the above. I mean, it, unfortunately, you know, and I don't.
I think it's harder for people that have experienced that and then overcome it and are on the other side. You have people that have never really experienced hard times or adversities or anything.
True.
And then you have people that have, that's all they know.
Right.
And then you have a very wonderful amount of people in the middle there that have experienced that and then have overcome it.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, we are so passionate about it because of that. And we realize, you know, once you're on the other side, how easy it is.
Right.
You know, that life is so much better.
Yeah.
You just got to take that first step in the right direction, get your mind right, get your life right, and that's all that it takes for a better life.
Right.
And we understand, I don't know if you've experienced some things or not, but I understand myself through things that is an overwhelming feeling. That seems like you're going to just have to tear down a wall with a toothpick and things.
Right.
But we got to figure out how to make people like that just trust. Because if I could trust somebody when they were trying to tell me what I'm trying to tell people now, my life would have been different 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how to fast track that for people. But they're so unwilling to even understand, you know, because it's like, you don't understand what this feels like. You don't know what I feel like. You don't know what I'm going through.
Right.
It's like, we do, but we don't know how to communicate that to you.
Right.
You know, and then, of course, these people on that other side, they don't.
Right.
They haven't had to experience it. I don't think that they're lucky for that at all, because they're missing out on important parts of life to overcome things. But how do you think that we can communicate to people in a way to get them to?
I think by just being vocal, sharing your experience of, you know, you were on medication for 20 years, you got off of it. Here's what's better about that. I can tell you from personal experience. Here's what the medication did to me. And if people are experiencing a similar experience on the same medication, then, you know, maybe, you know, something will click that, you know, maybe
I'm figuring out how to do a video like that
Yeah.
sometime soon in that journey. But
I think people,
that's
you know,
a difficult road to navigate too.
Share your stories, share things, try to be a help to people. And
but still, at that point, because many have shared before me.
Right.
And many of, you know, with bigger platforms doing it now and things, but still people just aren't taking the step, and they don't believe that either they can do it and or that the message that they're being taught is the truth or can apply to them. Because I go to masterminds and business things, and I mean, hundreds of thousands of people all in the same room, getting hyped and amped up.
Right.
And then leaving and back to no, I really can't do anything about my life.
Right.
I can't create change. I can't do anything. And I don't understand, like, where either a follow through or how to really get to these people to understand. I really don't know. I know that all it took for me very, very, very hard times in dark places.
And some people might have to experience
but I don't want people
and
to
you
have
don't
to
want people
experience
to.
that.
You
No.
don't want people to. Unfortunately, some
Not
people
everybody's
have to learn
equipped
the
to be
hard
able
way.
to.
Right. And some people have to learn the hard way. But I think, you know, when you know somebody, especially personally, that's going through a battle like that, check on them.
Yeah.
Don't give up on them. Don't, you know, keep talking. And they may not want to hear you, and they may get angry at you. and that's okay.
Yeah.
And
Society's really pushed us away in that. And I think that life through pre-SCAMdemic to post-SCAMdemic and the conversations, it really affected tremendously.
Absolutely.
And, I try to have conversations with people that I was super close with before that, and it's like, we don't even speak the same language anymore.
Right.
It's just like they're so lost in the ability to conversate anymore.
Right.
They speak to tell you what you want to hear versus just speaking truth or, being relevant about what's happening in a conversation.
Right. Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy to me.
It is. It is.
But I think that, more conversations need to be had.
Absolutely.
And people that, I understand the whole antisocial thing and not being people-y and all that, but I still, up until I did the first order online, pick your groceries up 2 days ago. Because the little Walmart down here it's always been self-checkout, but they at least had long ones that you could set your groceries on.
Yes.
Now they've taken all that away. Yeah. And the last time I went through there, we have this much space, a huge ass buggy, and 4 employees standing there watching you to make sure you do their job correctly.
Right.
So I always try to, the experience of going to the grocery store, you see people in the community, you see what's happening, you see, what's going on, what's in stock, what's the prices, if you're completely stepped back away from society, you don't understand what's going on.
Right.
And it can change very quickly.
Right.
And I don't know how to get people to transition back to where we were for the need of, if we don't, we're all going to be stuck at home doing what we told everybody was going to happen 4 years ago.
I mean, I think just, like I said, go against what the norm is right now. Say hello to people, shake hands, make eye contact. If you looks like somebody's struggling, hey, how could I pray for you today? And sometimes people just need maybe even just a kind word. Maybe you don't even know the person, but you can tell they're having a bad day, and pay them a compliment. Yeah. Speak words of encouragement to people when you see them out.
And I've started doing that, plus the opposite too. I've started having the harder conversations of, if I see somebody doing something wrong, used to, you're like, society says, don't, it's not your place to say anything or this, that, and the other, but if we don't, who is?
Right.
And if I was doing something wrong, I sure would want somebody to let me know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, society's not receptive to it right now. But I think we can get back to that, because I remember as a teenager, if I was doing something out of line, there was an adult that was telling me about it.
Right.
And we've gotten too scared to do that. And I've started, trying to do it tactfully. And usually whatever I think is the best for the situation is kind of the approach that I try to give it. But I think that the hard conversations like that are just as important as...
It is.
The praying for people and being on the good side. It's also, we've got to be the hard critics too.
Right.
Put people in check and say, you're not doing things correctly, and that's okay, as long as, you figure out how to do them correctly. You keep making the same mistake, that's when problems happen. But I think that society really needs a little bit more of that, but in a tasteful manner and tactfully, not in... the throw-up verbiage that happens these days.
Cussing, threatening.
Right. Yeah. The phobes and the letters and all the things that have lost value. And that's people that aren't even speaking from experience or understanding.
Right.
People need to have discernment and understand that.
Right.
And that's where leaders need to step up and be leaders and say, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I have an ability or a skill, a calling, whatever it may be. Because their life's not getting any easier if it doesn't happen.
Right.
And I hope that people have seen that over the past 4 years.
Yeah.
To really get a grip on things.
Yes. Well, I think we need to back to the art of, being able to disagree. I mean, used to we could disagree and still, get along just fine and not agree on every single thing. Yeah. And I think people have lost that ability. They've lost the ability to...
People are afraid to say things on social media because they're afraid someone else is going to see it and then not want to be their friend anymore.
Right. You're an adult. I mean, you're not a 12-year-old trying to sit at the popular lunch table. Like, you're an adult. I mean, come on.
It's weird.
Yeah. And not that I set out to offend people, but, I mean, speak truth.
Right.
Speak,
I'm very intentional.
Yeah.
And with everything that I do and say. And if I have ill intent, you will know it. I will make it known.
Right.
So until then, the way I speak, so it might not be the way people are used to, but it's not of ill intent. If it makes people uncomfortable, that's because they're not able to handle it.
Right.
But they don't understand that.
Right.
Everybody immediately says, well, you're trying to hurt me. You're trying to be mean. And a lot of times there's a thing called tough love. You tell people the truth out of love because you want better for them, not because you're trying to hurt their feelings.
Right.
And it's so wild to see so many people just immediately feelings hurt and shut off.
I think they're, wired with this emotional response, and it's all about, well, how does this make you feel?
Right.
And, sometimes it don't feel well. It don't feel good. It does not, I don't, and there's things I'm wrong, and it's tough sometimes to admit that I'm wrong or have done wrong. And, but if I realize and recognize it, I try to acknowledge that. I try to move forward. I try to change my behavior, and,
That's how we grow.
Right.
And if no one tells us that we're doing something incorrectly, if there's not a line in the sand drawn or a boundary set, there's nowhere to go.
Right. And if you
There's
don't
nothing to
think there's
judge
room for
against.
improvement, I mean, I don't know how people don't want to improve on these, New Year's resolutions. That, prime example, every, take a step back, re-examine, what can I do different this year? What didn't I like about this past year? What do I want to hopefully see this next year going forward? And, it's just, there's always room for improvement. I don't care who you are. And, and that's in every aspect of our society.
And, encouraging that of people doesn't make you a bad person.
No.
I think that people need to do more of it.
I mean, we do it with our businesses. We look at, we should never just be satisfied, with, we should, okay, what can we do different next year? What can we do better? How can we grow this part of our business? And you look at different ways to do that. And I think it's no different than your life. I mean, there should be things that you do that's going to improve it, that's going to, make an impact. And
yeah, I would rather people tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong versus what I'm doing right.
Yeah.
Odds are I probably know what I'm doing right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Right. And,
you tell somebody correctly and effectively what they're doing wrong, and they can, make it better for the positive result.
Right.
And so many people are
Scared.
either afraid to
They're
do that
scared
or
to
they
do
don't know how to do it
They don't
properly.
know how to do it. Yeah, they don't know how to do it. But I think it's just conflict management. I mean, conflict management 101, figuring out, and not addressing, like we have a rule in our house, our kids don't address conflict issues through like Snapchat.
Right.
If you have a problem, you go and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Teach your kids, sometimes it's, and do it yourself at work.
Well, and when there's problems,
don't
being
send
able
an
to
email,
hear
pick up the
voice
phone. Yeah.
is more important than reading text on a screen that you have no idea what it meant.
Tone can be misinterpreted being read,
100%.
And so, go back to some of this, old school, communication that we used to do before all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, when you have to have that hard meeting, do it face to face. Don't send an email. Don't send a text.
Right.
And
they're more receptive to it that way.
Right.
Because they can hear the truthfulness and, honestness through your voice that way.
Right. Facial expressions can be interpreted, all kinds of things. So, I think just getting back to that, addressing issues before they become major issues. And I think, that's
really
important.
being proactive and be able to think.
Right.
And see things as they're happening.
Don't let it just keep getting worse and worse and worse,
Because then it's harder to tackle.
Right.
If you can get it in the beginning, it's a lot less stress.
Yeah. Look at how, these lockdowns progress. Look at how it went from we're going to do this for 2 weeks to now we're going to do it for this many months. And now it's going to affect your business. Now it's going to be your church. It's going to be
new ways of life.
Right. Now we've got a whole new way of life. And so what if during that first 2 weeks, if we said, no, we're not going to stay home.
Well, look at how many minor things they've tried to slide in, and society's just like, no, that one don't work.
And so then they're
like, oh,
it goes away.
Next,
Yeah.
Imagine if that could have been COVID.
Right.
It didn't have to
It
be
didn't
this
stick.
big.
Yep.
And there will be something else.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There will be because they had too much success with that.
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so we'll start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
And I want to end with this. What do you think will become between now and the election of this year?
Well, I think the issue of election integrity was never addressed. It was never, our own justice system has said they have no intention of doing any type of investigation into it. And so while I still plan on getting out and voting for who I'm going to vote for, and I, love, that I have the right to do that, I don't know if there's really going to be any different come this November, what happened before.
I'm almost at the point that I don't think we'll have a 2024 election.
And we may not.
I think
there are things
something happening
allows for them to do martial law and different
whatnot.
things. Yeah.
I think that, because I think that they may not be looking into it enough, or have admitted it or not, whatnot. But I do think that they know that enough people are questioning or interested in it.
There's been too much attention brought to it. Documentaries
we've
made.
talked, similar in local situations. So I think that they might leave that as the last resort.
Right.
And I think that they may have a few other plans in place
to remain in control
beforehand. I've got a few different ideas. I don't know what yet. Because I would have thought that something else would have already been in play by now.
Well, I think our country is going to be changing. We've got open borders like we've never had before.
That's a very bad place to be.
Other countries don't, they actually monitor and control their borders. There's more airport security. There's more security going into a ball game than there is at our borders. So how's that going to affect? We're already seeing
these military young men.
We're already seeing murders that have
across.
taken place because we've got criminals here. How is that going to affect our votes going forward? And is it going to turn the tide of the vote?
I don't know if they're pushing them in to be voters, or if they're coming in to become the military
and police the people.
Yeah, will take over. The citizens that didn't do anything last time.
I think some of their desires to remain in control, I wouldn't put anything. I think they're capable of anything at this point. Nothing would surprise me.
Shut off technology,
this
shut off
summer
power
they
grid.
started talking about aliens are real, and it went on record. And at this point, I'm not even surprised. Okay.
Right.
But I think definitely, and I think they will, do things. I think, like you said, it was too easy to control people. They've realized people can be controlled.
I thought the code was a test, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really thought in the beginning it was just a test to see how much compliance they would get. I didn't think it would last as long as it did.
No, absolutely not.
Which makes me fearful of what's the real deal going to be, because Bill Gates and Fauci and all of them have talked about it.
Right.
Said something's going to happen. So I don't know if they'll release another situation as such. I've seen some people, looking at mandates and lockdown procedures kind of getting passed in bills that there's no reason for them to be in, which kind of worries me a little bit about this election year. They are kind of starting to let Joe Biden be a little bit more of whatever that is.
I don't even know what that was. Watched that State of the Union.
Sure what that thing is.
Not sure. Threatening our Supreme Court. That's not okay. But
I also think that they may filter him out, and based upon, didn't really get the response they wanted on Nikki Haley, I think that they may try to bring Michelle Obama in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think that will be to get the black votes back onto their side, because a lot of those people have understood, thankfully.
Yeah.
I don't think that it'll work, because everybody that understands, especially in that culture, truly understands.
Right. It makes me sad that they've been taught there is a black-white vote. To me, it's a vote.
Right.
I'm sorry. And
at this point in time, we're all here. We're all Americans. We're all the same.
We're Americans.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's not about your color, and
The only people that make it an issue are the people making it an issue.
Right. We're being told to make it an issue.
You can't just decide that it's an issue because that's how you feel.
Right.
But the fact that there's even this conversation being had, and the fact that we know that there's an ability for them to have a deck of cards laid out and say, which hand do we want to play?
Right.
And also the fact that majority now, I like to say a majority, but I would think that at least 70% of the population now understands something's not right. Maybe not the extent, but at least something.
Right.
And we're all just sitting back allowing, well, I'm not, but most are.
So, most are.
Are just sitting back like, well, let's see, get our popcorn and see what's going to happen.
Right.
Where's this shit show going? And some of them even joke about it.
Right.
Like, this is our lives.
Right.
this is worse than anything this country's ever seen.
People. It's not real for people. I mean, people talk real big about, you know.
Do you think they do a good enough job of censoring it and hiding it from people that are oblivious? That they don't even really
I think they've been
desensitized.
I mean, I think people are desensitized to this is a real possibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've made it entertainment, like the movie and book Red Dawn. I mean, that was big in the 80s. It was big again, you know, back in mid-2000s, and, you know, great storyline, but very real possibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing they utilize in that particular movie is, you know, they cut off communication. That's how they control the people. And, you know, you would think people would be like, this just happened to us. Like, they cut off our communication, or they attempted to, very much so.
Yeah.
And, you know, to gain control. And I don't think, again, I think people don't think it could ever happen again. I think people look at things like World War II that your grandparents maybe fought in and think that'll never happen again.
I don't even know if some of them can compartmentalize and understand that people were really in there now.
Right.
You know, maybe our generation might be the last generation that understands it, really.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, it's weird to see.
Yeah.
Even though there's some veterans from them still alive.
Right.
It's like they just can't truly understand it. It seems so far back.
Right. Right.
And, you know, that it was.
That would never happen again, you know.
No.
And it's, you know, I don't understand that mentality. Again, like you said, you had to hit some dark, hard times. I hope that's not what happens. I hope people don't. But, you know, I think if people are paying attention, like you and I, you know, you're making plans. And like you've said before, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you and your family. When it hits the fan, you're on your own. And you would, you know, I don't know how people don't realize that yet. You know,
I don't have any idea.
I don't know.
Which, okay, brings me to this then. Let's say life goes grand and Trump gets elected.
Right.
Do you think that he can really turn things around and fix things?
I mean, he did a lot of wonderful things when he was in office, but, you know, at the same time, he's not a dictator.
Right.
The presidency is not meant to, you know, completely control, and, you know, so at the same time, we've got to look at all of our other elected positions. It's not just about Trump individually.
Right.
And so I think it starts, again, with your local community. It works its way up into your state. And then from there, you work your way into what's going on with your federal government. Right. And, you know, I think we need to take a long, hard look at what's going on with our justice system. I think we've definitely got some issues. You know, the way
look at what they're doing to him.
Know, our family's tackling it. My daughter's wanting to practice constitutional law. She really has a desire to get in there and uphold the Constitution. Right. And I hope she's able to do so. You know, I hope, you know, and I guess just how can you make a difference? I mean, she's young. She's, you know, still got school ahead of her. Obviously, I'm not going to go to law school anytime soon, but that's how she's hoping to contribute. And so I guess finding ways, you know, what can we do to help make this country better? Even if Trump's not elected, how can we preserve and protect our community and our country?
That we should all take the government out of the equation.
Right.
We don't need them.
Right.
Not for this.
I mean, it's out of control.
Within a lot of people's lifetimes now, half of the things that exist now didn't exist less than 100 years ago.
Right.
And the country survived just fine.
Right.
We know a lot more now than what they know. So information was suppressed tremendously then.
Right.
I think that our government has gotten too big.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people have been in it for too long.
And everything they touch. I mean, look at everything that they've posted that they've
completely lost touch with reality.
You know,
they don't live the same lives that we live.
Yeah.
They have no understanding of our situations.
No.
And I don't think that there's any way of even just removing and transferring people in place that it can get done. I really genuinely think that regardless of if it takes a complete elimination and start over or do over or whatnot, the Constitution tells us that's what's needed now and required.
Right.
But regardless if it needs that, definitely if society would push them to the side, work together and release a lot of their power and control and things, I think that they would kind of just go back to doing their own little things out of fear.
Right.
And then we could figure out how to function on our own and then let them come in as needed or in accordance or working together or for the betterment of society. But
Right.
the way that it's working now is not going to work. And it's
No.
been wrong for so long
Right.
that it completely has to change, because the same people that were there during Watergate and the things of that
Yes.
time period are still there.
Again, term limits.
It doesn't change.
I don't
to
care
put
how
someone
great of a
different there.
politician you are, term limits. I mean, we should never have a career politician. I think it just makes you jaded. It removes all accountability. It removes your focus, because then you're just focused on
Right, and then you lose touch with
maintaining that
reality.
level of control. Right, right.
They
I
don't.
think,
How can you fight for your constituents
Right.
if you don't even understand their struggles and the life that they
Right.
live anymore?
you're being lobbied
You still
for.
have to be
Yeah.
involved in society.
Right.
And when you remove yourself from society, you can't accurately have any influence in it.
Right. I mean, we've got to look at the way, the whole lobbyist thing works. I think that's something, I mean, I know, and as a business owner, if on a piece of paper I make this much per year, but I'm make $100,000 a year, but I'm living in $1 million home, there may be some questions being asked. But we're not asking those same questions of those elected. And, how are you making this salary, but your net worth is
I'm
this?
all about cheating the tax system.
Right. But I mean,
I'm all about
it's worth questioning, because that tells you there's things going
But
on.
and it's not from that. Cheating
Right.
the tax system's fine.
Right.
It's not that. It's the hand-to-hand deals that help each other
Right.
get through that
Right.
and
But
profit.
how
benefit
do
from it.
we
And
how-
only keep gatekeeping it
Right.
to certain individuals.
How do we keep those elected honest, I guess is the question. How do you keep
Make
them
them
working
fear
for the
us.
people, right? How do you keep them,
Put them in check.
doing, knowing the job they're elected to do, and that they're there to represent the people?
Rotate
And it's
them
not
through.
for their benefit. It's not to benefit them personally.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, like you said, the whole system needs an overhaul. It's like a failing company.
Yeah.
You don't just keep getting to do the same thing
Well,
year
they're
after year.
bankrupt and
Same-
broke, and
Right.
they've failed.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a
Audits
failing
and things,
business,
I
you
mean,
can't go to the bank and get a loan.
No.
They're gonna laugh at you.
Right.
And you're not gonna be able to just keep doing the same thing year after year and maintaining. And that's what we've done as
somehow we're allowing
a
it.
society. Yeah, we've somehow continued, and we're getting further and further. My great grandchildren will be paying off this debt that
They will never.
long
get
after
paid.
I'm dead. I
Right.
mean, they'll be dead.
I don't think if something happens now that they will
No,
have an existence of that mindset.
no.
And I will say I have a problem with Trump. I don't think that he can fix it.
Well, I don't think he
that he did
personally
good
can.
for
I don't think one
his
person
time.
can personally do it.
No, definitely not. But I mean,
But-
I'm saying like what people think. Like, I'm
Right.
trying to just
I understand,
get them
yeah.
to get that. But my problem with him is I thought he did great for the 4 years. I've never really been a fan of the government to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
I understand.
I don't need to mess with them. They don't mess with me. But I understand that he was probably one of the best we've had, and the economy was great, and he shook some things up, and
Right.
he did good. However, and I also understand that given the scamdemic that he was put in, he was misled, but he also
Right.
made some things that questionable decisions that morally
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have agreed with.
Right.
But it's been after that that's weird to me on these people that believe that he may still be president secretly, and some of
Right.
these other things that he could do and could not do. And to challenge their thought is, if he was still president, why would he allow it to get
Right.
as
Why is it
bad
getting as bad as it is?
has?
And I think, yes, that's a
so
valid
that I don't
question.
believe that ever. And
I
don't
think
understand
people
why
are just
don't get it.
grasping.
I think so, too.
at this point, and you don't want to think your country's this far gone. Maybe it's easier to believe that
Maybe.
secretly, the government's going to just get better, and secretly he's
But
behind
we
the
live
scenes.
in a
and-
reality, not
Right,
a
we do.
make-believe.
But I think for some people it's easier to accept a fantasy. And, and I do. I mean, I think there's a difference in thinking the election was compromised and that he, in fact, was the winner.
Right.
And believing that there is some secret mission going on behind the scenes. Now, that's a lovely thought.
Crazy.
I mean, I would, that would, okay, great.
That would have been
But-
okay maybe for the first 6 months.
Right, but I mean,
allowing
again,
this current
yeah.
state to be happening. And even though he's still, it's kind of like he's just riding it out. And I don't understand why,
Well-
anybody would let it get this
Right,
far.
exactly. And I think
This bad.
people need to be paying attention to how he's being politically
Mm-hmm.
persecuted. They need to be asking some questions. This is not a third world country.
No,
What
well,
is going on here?
We are in communism state
Right.
for sure.
And if he can be persecuted on these issues, and there be no legal precedents for
Mm-hmm.
the things he's being persecuted on, we need to be taking a serious look at our justice system, because what if you do something? Our government, are they going to come after you
Yeah.
and politically
Yeah, we need
persecute
some
you and your
transparency.
family? So we need, as a country, I mean, I don't care if you're a fan or not a fan, what's happening is not right.
No.
It's not right.
People should be open to that.
They
for
should
sure.
be aware that, that's not okay. Because
whether they like Orange Man or whatever.
whether you like him personally or
Right.
not, is what he did really criminal?
Was your life better
did he break
during
a
that
law?
point in time?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's just some of the stuff that's happened in court, them not allowing evidence in, different things. I mean, any other person, that would be immediately not a fair trial. I mean, not,
100%.
I mean,
Well, the way they misvalued Mar-a-Lago and
Right.
eliminating him from doing, regardless of what people think about him, what's being allowed to happen to him,
Right.
should be eye-opening to people.
To people,
but they're,
yeah.
they're allowing their hate for somebody that they
Hate, yes.
misunderstand.
and most of them can't even really tell you
To
why they
just
hate him.
disregard it,
They just
right.
don't like him.
Exactly,
They
because they're
think
told
they don't
to.
like the way he talks. Okay, well, all right.
It's all right. I don't need to like any way anybody talks, as long as they get the job
But
done. What's the
is
result?
what's happening to him, is it legal? Is it okay?
No.
As a citizen, is it okay?
shouldn't be
It's
happening in this
not-
country.
It's not okay. Absolutely not.
This should be the last country it happens in.
And the way that, go back to January 6th,
Mm-hmm.
the way these people are being treated, even if they were inside the Capitol and they broke windows and did things they shouldn't have done, what is what's happening
Right.
to them? Does the punishment fit the
No.
crime? I mean,
If it was an insurrection, why haven't they declared it as that?
right. I think they've tried.
They just talk about it, but
They talk
they haven't
about it.
classified it as one
Right.
because it wasn't.
Right. No. As someone who was there, I didn't
Right.
see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see it. I distinctly remember watching September 11th unfold. And
You think that was legit?
honestly, at this point, as much as I've questioned, I have questions about that now too.
I don't think it was legit.
I mean, there's things I used to
But
think.
that's because
Right.
even back then,
Now,
just the building,
legit,
the
people
construction
died.
side of my brain. Oh, for sure.
Innocent people died that day.
Yeah,
And
100%.
that, and
Our
so,
country's killing innocent people every day.
seeing that happen versus being right there in D.C. and being right at the Capitol building and seeing, there's no comparison. And I think it's a discredit and a disrespect to every single person that was involved or personally affected that day by September 11th. I think that it's a disgrace to
100%.
compare the two in any way.
Yeah,
And
it's
a dishonor to their memory. It's a disgrace to their families. And if that was my family, I can't even imagine how that would make me feel. But
Yeah,
so
it's wild for sure.
yeah. So
I don't know what's going to happen. I think that
No.
honestly, there's been times that I've kind of wished for things just to get as bad as they're going to get, so that the ones that are going to survive go ahead and survive, and the ones that aren't,
yeah.
we can get it over with and start rebuilding.
Right.
Because it's kind of like the shit show, and the pain and agony is just getting drug out. We're dying a slow, painful death.
We're all on the runaway train
It's
that we
just
don't want to be on.
wild, and
Yep. Absolutely.
because I'm prepared and ready for whatever
Right.
can happen.
Well, if you're paying
I'm
attention,
actually
you should be.
right. I'm more ready for that than
Right.
living life as it is now.
Yep.
But then if it doesn't happen, is people of our mindset and logical thinking, what's our next step if we make it another year or two and things just continue to get worse and we keep trying these things? At what point do we maybe have to take forceful action or even greater division and say, we have to just completely separate from all of this?
Right.
Because even now, I don't believe that we're in any sort of political fights or cultural fights, diversity, anything. It is pure evil against good.
Right.
And unfortunately, evil is winning right now.
Evil's winning because good's taking a seat.
Right. Or maybe there wasn't as much good as we thought.
Maybe not.
We've been misled and naive to things.
Right.
I don't know, but I definitely think that we need to find out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
more people need to be at least aware and open
Yep.
and not afraid.
Yep. Absolutely. I hope people can find their courage. Like you said, I hope people see, the small, me wanting to do that letter. I mean, I felt very insignificant. I wasn't sure how I could help people.
Right.
It wasn't personally, my company wasn't requiring a vaccine.
Yeah.
But I knew it was wrong, and I wanted to do something to
Right.
try to help people.
And you knew you could.
And I hoped I could. I mean, I hoped that, I could make, even if it was just for one or two people here in town, that they wouldn't lose their jobs. And So I think, I guess finding out at the end of the day, what can you do? What, at the end of the day, are you satisfied with your contribution? Are you, do you really, have you contributed to this life, to this world, to this country? And I hope that at the end of my life, whenever that might be, I know that I made a small bit of difference and for the good. And I'm not perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes myself, but
if we didn't make mistakes, we wouldn't get any better.
Yeah, I've tried to do something, and that my kids remember that I spoke up and that I wasn't afraid, and that, I made people, they didn't like me because I was vocal about things, but I did it on their behalf. And I hope when they're faced with because things will progress and they're going to be put in those same situations. And I hope that they will be courageous and take a stand.
Maybe when it really gets life or death, fight or flight, bad enough, maybe in the back of their mind, they'll think that person did something. And by golly, I'm out of options now. Is it worth at least try it?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
But we're also, you can look at it from a complete different lens and look at what can't we do?
Right.
Options are endless now.
Right.
We have experienced breaking chains and realizing what is and understanding that we could be completely different and living our purposes. And if people just would break free and say, this is not the life that the Lord intended for us to have, that our founding fathers intended for us to have, and our moral compasses should have us to have.
I think, you have to want something different for your life, whether that be breaking generational curses, whether that be, just changing from how you were 5 years ago or, yesterday. And it has to start somewhere. Yeah. And I think, just deciding what's the life that you want, what's the life you want for your kids, your grandkids. And
some people need to take a step before that and understand that they have that ability to make that decision.
Right.
I think so many people just don't have the confidence in realizing that they can make that decision.
People are so, I think, discouraged, beat down, living in fear. I think still a lot of people have a lot of fear. And I guess it's just getting
lack
past
of confidence.
Right. Getting past that and realizing you have options, and you have your one and only life. Yeah. What are you going to do with that? And, our days are numbered, and,
well, regardless of if they want to leave an impact on the world or not, they should at least enjoy it.
And it's not just about it's not about becoming world famous. Right. It's about, doing some good while you're here.
Right. I think that everybody has a different purpose, and that's okay. Just live your purpose.
Right. And if you help one person, you've helped one person. Great.
Who are they helping
Wonderful.
Because of that?
Yeah.
How
does that trickle down? How does that affect somebody else's life?
Yep.
And, we all have the ability to do something.
Right.
Something. We don't have to be.
Now more than ever is the time to do it.
You don't have to be the next Donald Trump and be, a millionaire to make a difference. Right. You don't. And
not in today's society.
I think he used his skills that he had. I mean, I think he went and made some wonderful trade deals. I think he did things. He used his knowledge to contribute and make a difference. Not perfect.
First and foremost, the business side of it.
Right. Which
was the best.
Absolutely. That's what we needed. Him coming in and doing some of the things that he needed. And, like him or not, you have to agree he did some good.
Life was a little bit better while he was there.
And
up
so,
until the SCAMdemic.
What good can you contribute? Yeah. What can you do? And, I hope at the end of it, I've inspired at least, a few people to find their voice.
Oh, for sure.
To, get involved, pay attention to what's going on, and, maybe don't do what society's telling you to do as far as parenting or your marriage. Do something, do it different.
It's okay to be
Walk
different.
that narrow path. It's not easy, and it's hard, but the rewards at the end of it are
it's very empowering.
So worth it.
Like, up until maybe last year, I didn't feel like I do now, but knowing that I have never put a mask on my face, I never believed in any of that nonsense, would obviously not get the vaccine, never complied to a single thing, and never even had COVID.
Yeah.
that almost at this point in the game almost makes you think that you have a superpower.
I've had it a couple times, so I yeah, but yeah,
it's just, I want people to be able to see, look, this is not the way that it is.
Right. Yep.
I'm not special. I didn't do anything different. I just believed in myself and did what I thought was right.
Just a rare minority that didn't fall for it. And I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I mean, that's what it was. I mean, it was just, you bought into what you were being told, and compliance to a point, and we've taught our kids to be compliant to a point.
Yeah.
To a point.
Right.
But at some point, when does that compliance, go against what's right and what's wrong, and what's healthy and what's not?
There needs to be a balance of that edgy riskiness there in life, and test boundaries. It's okay to test them. Right.
And you can do it respectfully, but that being respectful doesn't mean you just go along and do it. And so, I hope maybe people, where they, they may not ever post about it or tell you directly, but I hope they've realized now, what, we were wrong about those masks. Like, we should not have made our poor kids put those things on. We should not have,
That was.
Yeah, we were fooled.
Wild.
Yeah. And so, but
I definitely learned through all of that, especially when I took a year off of social media for the most part. I didn't completely, but definitely how I was in it. To really, I just understood that I wasn't communicating to people effectively. I don't know why or how and whatnot, and I wasn't confident to do the video format yet. But so I had to really understand what's going on with society and culture and people to figure out how to communicate with them. And the biggest understanding is that the voice and sound and being able to hear tone and see expression is so important.
Yes.
Because you and I could type the same thing on our phones.
And two people could read
it completely different ways.
Completely way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that can be good, but that can be very dangerous.
Right. It can. We've lost the art of communication. And, as a society, we're paying for that. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in our families. We're seeing it, with lost friendships. We're seeing it, just, the way it is now. I mean, people, how many people did lose friends and family over differences of political
craziness,
political stances,
or just beliefs. If you thought that something was true or not true.
Right.
So weird.
And that's sad to me. That's divided. It's further divided people, and I think it was by design, definitely.
100% by design.
Yeah.
I think that everything has been
by design.
Probably from the early 20s.
Yeah.
As where I really think that it's gone to.
I think we took, a lesson out of the Communist Handbook on some of this stuff. And when you look at it, they went point by point.
All of our engineers and developers and things came straight from Germany.
Yep. They
so
definitely,
far in my research,
they're not done.
I've made it to there.
They've had a plan. They've orchestrated that plan, and here we are. And but now what can we do about it? How do you undo years and years of?
Well, we can look at it two ways. We can say it sucks. This is what's happened. There's no hope for us. We can't do anything. Life is as it is. Or we can say, well, this is an awesome opportunity. We finally realized how bad things were and what was really going on. We've been manipulated, so let's go see what we can do. Let's go see how well we can live without all of this. Let's break free from the chains and enjoy life.
I think it starts, like I said, within your own home, and then from there it goes out into your local community, and then it hopefully gains traction from there. And people start seeing, people from other states, like I said, were coming here because their own states had they were locked down, and they were coming here just to be able, to get their hair done and just basic things.
Yeah, during that time, I would notice people, and it's like a sigh of relief that they were out.
They were out from that, being,
it's so sad that you
actually think they have the authority to do that to you. They don't. But I think just, as during that time, we kept our business open. Just doing things that don't conform.
And show what you stand for.
And showing people things can be different. You don't have to keep living this way.
No, you really don't.
And I think, there's people that worry. I know a lot of people, parents that I talk to, they worry about their kids being born now and what we're having to face as a society. But I think when you look at different times in history, it's, I take hope from, the story of Esther, for such a time as this, I think our kids, they're here for a purpose. They're here at this point in time, and I think they've got a purpose in this life. And
everybody does.
Everybody does. But it's finding that, it's executing that, it's knowing that, it's not easy. It's hard.
No, not at
and
all.
Especially
but
when
it's worth it.
The world is telling you you're wrong and you're stupid for thinking this, and it's hard. It's hard to hear those things, and it can get to you and play with you, with your mind. Sure. And it's hurtful, especially people, like I said, that you think you've known for years and years, and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
especially when you don't have the ill intent that they're blaming you of.
No, not at all.
When you come from a place of love and kindness and wanting to help others.
Right.
And the people that you expected to, even if they didn't agree with you or not, still remain a friend.
Right. They know I'm not an evil, hateful person. Yeah. I mean, I can be blunt. I can be brash, but I try to be a kind person, and I try to, be kind to people. And, before COVID, I think for the most part, people saw me as like a friendly, kind person. And then it was like, wait, you disagree with us? Go stand over there.
That's not kind.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
It's not kind to disagree with somebody.
Right.
And it's also not our job to just be kind and loving and friendly to everybody.
Right.
We're stuck in a culture where if you're not nice, you're an asshole. And that's just not the way that life is.
Right. But we're also living, no matter sometimes how nice you are to people. I mean, if you work with customers, it don't matter sometimes what you do.
Right.
You can't make people, can't make a miserable person happy.
Not at all.
And so, I mean,
emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence have reversed.
Right. Yeah.
The emotions really don't matter if you don't have the intellectual intelligence at all.
Right. And, I think people are confusing intellectual intelligence with what degrees do you have? What, where did you go to school?
And indoctrination.
Right. And I think, nothing wrong with getting, like I said, my daughter's getting ready to graduate college in December. I mean, we're pro-education in our house, but we're also, pro-tech if our son decides he wants to do a tech
individual.
path. Right. I'd be just as proud as I am if my daughter, becomes a lawyer. I'd be just as proud of her.
Well, and we live in a society now where, you don't have to have a college degree to become successful.
No.
And that's okay.
Right.
Certain areas, certain professions require it. Certain areas, certain professions, it helps benefit and it can better. But there's others that it's not required. And in that societal mindset of if you don't go to college, you can't be successful. And if you don't do this, you won't amount to anything and whatnot. It's just, it's not important anymore. And I wasted 3 years of college and an immense amount of debt. It did teach me some life skills and things, but for the most part, I knew what I was going to do regardless. I only went because I was forced to and told that that's what you have to do.
Right. In college or not, I hope people are always trying to learn. I mean, I don't think you should ever stop learning. You don't have to be in college to learn things.
I learn more now than I ever did in schooling. Yeah. Because I am now learning what I'm interested in, not what I'm forced to learn. Right. And I learn my style of learning.
Right.
And
everybody has different learning styles. Absolutely. Yeah.
I can learn more from YouTube than I ever could from reading a book.
Right.
Just the way that my brain works, because I can see myself doing things and whatnot, or the way that I retain the information, it just works that way. And that's okay. But people need to be aware of how they learn and how others don't learn.
I think people have lost the desire to learn. Right. I think, unfortunately, they've lost that. And I think, you could have 5 master's degrees, 3 doctorates, and still be missing.
I'm not so sure if I necessarily call that learning, though.
No, I'm just saying people equate your, the degrees with, well, that person, you're done learning. You should never be done learning. I don't care how many degrees you have or don't have. Always be learning something.
Because we're always progressing and evolving.
Right. Society's there's always, changing. There's so many things I'll go to my grave and not know.
Right.
And there's
the access that we have to information.
Right. We're so
why not
blessed.
Figure things out that you can
use that technology.
We have access now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, it's interesting. I like to figure out how things work.
Yeah.
I've got that mechanical style of mind, which traversed into the construction world and stuff. But now I'm infatuated with how we work.
Right.
And what I've gone through and how to help others through it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you can either take a stand in life and do something about your situations, or you're going to not, and life's going to continue to get worse. We're not in a state anymore where if enough people still don't give any to society, everyone else can carry the weight. There's not that much there anymore. Now, granted, it's kind of strange because only 10 to 15% of society is, silencing everybody else with this weird-ass culture stuff. But the other numbers are the reverse and not in a positive way.
Right. And I think we're seeing, we can't sustain the amount of people pouring in. And, I'm all for legal immigration. I'm all for people coming here and making a better life. Wonderful. But go through the proper channels.
And vet the people that are coming in. Make sure that they're not here to cause harm.
Right. And
that
we
is
need
perfectly
to
okay.
ensure when they are coming in, how are we handling that? How are we handling this flow of people? How can our schools sustain it? How can our hospitals sustain it? I mean, we barely
have the resources to sustain what we have now.
And we're not sustaining. I mean, look, our VA hospitals are a mess. I mean, there's so much that needs fixed, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed because it's a lot.
Right.
But like I said,
if we would remove a lot of the taxpaying money going to misappropriated things, and a lot of people making decisions that don't know how to make those decisions, we could start taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, and we could do it on our own. Right.
Absolutely.
We don't need them.
But I think we start small and work towards bigger goals. I mean, and,
I think now more people just need to understand the reality of life and understand what we can do. Right. What we really have to be our power, and the other guys don't. I mean, now, most of the people that are politicians are less educated or intelligent, whatever you want to say, than most people in our generation. Right. Just due to natural life experiences.
I guarantee my daughter knows the Constitution better
1,000%.
than,
and that's nothing,
than most of them in office.
Aside from the evil and corrupt politicians, that's not any fault of their own. That's just the way that society goes. The world's progressing. Right. You no longer can fully keep up with what's happening in the world. We got to put somebody there that does. Right. There should be no emotion to that. Right. It's just a fact of the matter.
Right. But you should know our foundation. You should uphold that. You take an oath, and you should, fight for that, to maintain that. And we've got an amazing
And the entire system, I think, has watered it down so much that oath doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I always fall back to either it's got to be completely overhauled, whether it's demolished or just set to the side and not paid any attention to until it's needed.
Well, I think it's just like any failing corporation, clean house. You got to clean house. I mean, what we're doing is obviously not working. And, just for example, Social Security, I mean, it's such a mess. And I mean, we're so far gone. Our elderly are not getting the care even at this point that they need. And I mean, it's
but
just
the illegal immigrants are getting better lives than they live.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, how do we make it better? I mean, how do we clean that up, make it better? It's going in, doing an overhaul, looking at specifically where every dollar's going.
And starting locally too, I believe.
Right, absolutely.
Working the way up.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's two ways. Obviously, the quickest way would be completely destroy it and eliminate the entire thing. Right. Which would be fine. People don't really understand that, but it would be. Right. The other way is a little bit longer, probably a little bit
and it's
more
most
troublesome.
Likely the process will be having to go through, but
either way, if we don't do anything, it will just continue to get worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, I think I just want to know I did something. Right. It may not, I mean, the world may still go to hell and fall off the face of the planet, but I've tried. I mean, I tried something. And
I don't need to do any of this. I don't need to speak out. I don't need to unprivatize my life. I enjoy getting to where I've been and it being private and the life that I live in. I can, especially now more than ever, live a better life than most people because of the experience the past 4 years. Right. But that doesn't mean anything to me if the world's still shit. Right. So it's my job, and I feel led to do something about it. And it's the most clear thing I've ever felt in my entire life. Yeah. I don't want to do this. Right. But I am because I feel led to, and I have the ability to. Right. And as an entrepreneur and everything I've always struggled in life, I've always, when I've come to a point, I've always looked myself in the mirror and said, if not you, who? And if not now, when?
Exactly.
And that's, when I've been waiting and I've been waiting and waiting, I look at myself and ask that, I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's true.
Right.
Maybe tomorrow, but still, if not now, when? Nobody's doing it.
No.
So I've looked myself in the mirror and decided this is what we're going to do until life gets straightened out, and then I'll go back to my private life.
I think that's all we can do. I think the best that we can, and at the end of the night, I sleep pretty good at night. I mean, I know what I've done. I'm constantly looking for ways to what else can I do to contribute. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, I've done what I know to be right. Right. And I'm hoping that I've made some positive impact.
Yeah, I think you have.
And I mean, I hope so. I hope so.
Especially just looking at your kids, and what you did with those, not vouchers, but what were the exemptions?
The exemption letters,
or whatever they were.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, just the steps of not stopping when you get pushed back and things like that, because there will be a day that somebody wants to speak and says, well, it wasn't as bad as I was told it was, because I saw somebody else do it.
Right. And sometimes
consistency is just, if you just don't stop and you don't give up, you'll eventually get there.
Right. And I think if you see something that's not right, I mean, here in our local community, when we went back to school, they were requiring our school staff to quarantine if they came into contact with COVID for so many days. Well, a lot of teachers didn't have the vacation days. Our county did have the money to pay for a certain number of days per person, but they had decided they weren't going to use that money for that. So, I made some posts about it. I took a petition to the school, and they decided, okay, we will allow these COVID days and pay our teachers for some. So if you see something that's not right, speak up about it and try to, bring awareness to that situation.
And at least if they don't think that their voice can be of something, contact somebody that will speak up, because the people that can speak up can't see everything. Right. So they might see something that somebody that's going to speak up didn't see, notice, or experience. Right. And if they don't want to speak up themselves, at least contact somebody that they know will. Right. And work together to say, hey,
something's not right here.
This is what we got to do.
The school has this money here, and they're not going to use it for us to take, but they're requiring me to take these days. Right. And I don't have any more vacation time left.
The people that are speaking up need everyone that's not to at least provide them with the information accurately.
Do what you can when you can, and
collectively, just everybody working together.
Right. Yeah.
Society doesn't have to be like this.
One tiny person. I can only do so much, and but having one or two people coming along and saying, let's do this together, it makes a huge difference. Sure does. Huge difference.
And that's how it starts.
Right.
Any movement had to start somewhere.
Right.
And not saying that, America needs a huge movement, but we definitely need our country back.
We need something. We need something. Yeah, definitely. For sure. For sure.
All right, well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know how long we spent doing this. I kind of just go where the conversation goes.
Right.
And
well, I enjoyed having the conversation. I think more people need to be having these conversations.
Yeah, I've got a pretty good lineup coming, I hope.
Awesome.
And
yeah.
Obviously, as I do this more, it'll progress more, and maybe we'll have you back on as I get better at this, and we can. I
will contribute.
There is a lot more things that we didn't touch on,
right?
And even spending as much time, so navigating how to do all that too.
Yes.
But until next time, I don't know who the next person's going to be. And I don't know where it's going to be yet, but we'll figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, all right.